very orderly manner in which they vacated the classrooms, but you know that was the day he was there. Who's to say that that's the same procedure they follow every day, class by class? And then obviously, when you look at other countries and other schools, how they manage such crowds, they would have them in smaller groups, not to avoid this type of stampeding or this type of occurrence, because kids are kids. Anything could set them off. It could be even an insect, whatever it is. There is a propensity to get excited.
They'll get excited. They'll run. They'll run out of class. We were talking about this as well, CT, yesterday, and wondering. So look at the population of this school: 3,128 pupils in both lower and upper classes, 296 pupils in the early childhood development education, right? And 51 classrooms. So if you look at that, 51 classrooms holding 3,000 students, you are talking about very many pupils actually coming out through, if it's one staircase, one exit way and one entry. Really, this is squeezed, just to say the least.
How old is the school?
Kakamega Primary is definitely not it's not a new school.
It has never had a case. There's never been an incident of this sort ever. Why on that day? It's not as though there's some other passageway that the children exit from their classrooms. This is the same pathway they follow every single day. Why is it that on this particular day this happened?
Okay, so
Accident
on this
waiting to
particular
happen.
day, there was a meeting that took place, right? And there were two staircases that the students ordinarily use. But on this day, for some reason, this is now where the speculation is coming from. Right. On this particular day, the teacher then asked the students to only use one staircase to exit the building, where on normal days they would use both as exits. On this day, this class 5 teacher asked them
in one class.
Yes.
Not in the entire, all the streams, just one classroom.
Yes.
Class 5,
Class 5 asked them to use only one staircase to exit because of the meeting that was taking place in a class 7
So you don't make
room.
noise on the other side.
Exactly. So now, ordinarily, where you have this entire population of students, exiting on both sides, now he said, use only this one. So you can imagine there was, more in terms of numbers going down the stairs. So when this happened, they claimed that they started running and the teacher then came after them. And this is now control basically trying to control them. And this is when it all happened. Of course, teacher comes running, students run
even faster. And of course, probably
so this is what happened.
They get into trouble. So,
but even if you look at it, how long is a staircase? If you think about it, if, say, there's a stockpile of children falling on top of each other, at some point, they stop falling.
Yeah.
Because it's not as though they pile on top of each other, they more or less stream. Yes, and it takes seconds, not even minutes, for that to happen. Now, how is it that the number of injured children got to that and the number who died got to that? Understandably, they were the 4-year-olds. They were the most vulnerable, all right? But everything about the maths of this indicates that they were not just moving down the stairs. It was like they were moving at the highest speed possible
and
down the
unfortunately,
stairs.
quite a number of them were holding hands.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, at the time that they fell, they were holding hands.
Taking each other down.
So they fell still while holding hands. So
there's a lot that is still not explained in this situation. It defies normal logic.
It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you just call, there's
injured.
a freak accident here, but something small must have triggered the entire thing.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody tripping. Also, of course, caused by the fact that all of you are coming to the same staircase. All those things add up one after another.
Think about the Precious Talent School. Why the issue of speculation was more or less curtailed was you understood the wall collapsed.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So you can visualize a wall collapsing on children dying. It is not difficult to imagine.
Yep.
But this one, even if you stretch your imagination.
In other stampedes, you can also understand. For example, the Moshi stampede.
You can understand.
Church, leader says, I've poured some holy water here, so go and get yourself, whatever happened. So people are, of course, scrambling to get to that one point.
You can understand.
Or stadium, people are trying to enter a stadium or exit a stadium. You can understand.
There's also been the speculation about mass hysteria, which sometimes affects
children. When it comes to children, one thing happens and then everybody follows suit.
Yeah.
Sad story. Of course, the school has been closed for a while. Let's hope that the investigations will tell us the truth.
Yeah, but then moving forward, I would hope that more would be done to avoid this type of thing.
We have always said this. When you talk about students who die in a dormitory fire, we talk about exits and how exits are managed. And then we say we hope that, future exits shall not be managed this way. It doesn't happen. So in this country, tricks. You're hoping that something's going to change. This staircase is going to be widened. Mm-hmm. We're going to have more staircases. We're going to have, people who are standing on the staircase and asking the students to walk in an orderly manner. You can only hope
that will happen.
But take it further. If you are building a school, I think you cannot put up classrooms and follow the same order you would if you're building flats.
Exactly.
So again, the Architectural Society of Kenya and those who give building permits to such institutions, do they take into consideration that the entire building is supposed to be safe for children?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Or it might have been safe when it was constructed with a smaller population, but over time, then they have to upgrade to accommodate the changes and the bigger crowd.
The whole issue of actually having all pupils in one block, really, to me, I mean, that's why if you look at the old schools, they usually had very huge tracts of land. Gives you space for expansion. Why must all classrooms be under one block going up like that? And these are young children. Why must it? Continues. This is a conversation that we must continue having. Other headlines, Ndu?
Well, it's interesting. If you want to step over across borders just a little bit, Malawi's judges will rely on Kenya's case to nullify a presidential poll. And just seeing how things happen here, and we're all enveloped by the euphoria around it, or even the dramatics around it. It seems that the biggest lesson this week from Malawi was that a 5-judge bench annulled the re-election of President Peter Wamatharika, citing widespread irregularities that the court observed and made it difficult to prove the vote had been free and fair. This would be the second time the process of the vote, rather than the vote result, has caused an election to be nullified. The judges of the Malawi Constitutional Court borrowed observations from the Supreme Court of Kenya, which in 2017 nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And actually they cited this as, it has happened before. We can see that this will be used. And so that presidential poll has been nullified, and they will go to the polls again.
What's their issue this time? They have an issue with their servers and IABC.
On the Malawi side.
While Kenya has set a president for them, I would hope they would also learn about the fallout that comes from that type of ruling, because the judiciary right now is at loggerheads with the executive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, owing to that type of
You're putting it
intervention.
This isn't loggerheads, they're at war.
Yeah, they're at war.
The judiciary and the executive.
Yes, they're at war. This isn't because one of the things that we heard when the chairman of the ICJ was here, he explained to us with great clarity how it is the funding of the judiciary, being an independent institution, ought to be carried out. But the reality in Kenya is that money is held tightly by the treasury and doled out as they see fit, and withheld again as they see fit. Not even trickles. It's in droplets. Dropped when they observe. It just drop functioning.
Are you improving?
Yes. Yeah. And if things aren't going their way, they even call back the drop.
Wow.
Yes.
Bring it back.
Yes.
And then Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. was here as well, and he told us we have 4 arms of government.
Yes.
The fourth one is the National Treasury.
Wow, that powerful, huh?
Yes.
That powerful. This is what happens.
Yes.
So let's hope that the Malawians learn out of this. Also, maybe they're gonna have a handshake.
Well, we'll see. But, interestingly, because this is a 500-page ruling, and the judges unanimously agreed that no election could be free from irregularities. However, it could not be ignored that the significance of malpractices were quite high. And they said that their finding was that the anomalies and irregularities had been so widespread, systematic and grave, such that the integrity of the result was seriously compromised and can't be trusted as the will of the voters.
Unanimous decision. That is one thing that our Kenyan judges could learn as well. Lessons both ways.
Yeah.
In the case of our Supreme Court, it wasn't a unanimous decision. There were some dissenting voices.
There you go.
And those were how many? Actually, there were two. Njoki Ndongo and Justice J.B.O. Ojwang. And so in this particular case, 5 judges of that court, unanimous decision, go back to the polls. Polani sana, people of Malawi. BBI has taken a break.
BBI, BB no C. For now.
Yeah. And it's interesting how in Kenya the news cycle goes, because something happens and then you completely forget. And a lot of the stories that we've just talked about were swept under the rug. Yesterday, they were the biggest story. Yep. And once the death of a former president happened, it was all forgotten, because we were in a literal frenzy politically before yesterday. And now nobody's even talking about it. So calls to question how important these things are, or how committed we are to certain causes.
I think we are committed.
Yeah.
It's the fair weather approach that we have to these things that we must question.
Right.
Why is it that we are so flippant? Why is it that we are so mercurial? One moment you're this way, given an opportunity, again you're this way. But this is a
But guys, it's a national period of mourning. You have got to accept that.
Yeah.
Period of mourning means that all these things that you're doing, I mean, take a back seat. Hold on. If you're doing political rallies to talk about BBI, just take a back seat. It's just for a short period. Then we'll be back. Water was supposed to have happened this weekend. So water has been cancelled. The senator for Makueni announced yesterday. They've decided the water rally is not going to happen this weekend. But it's obvious to me, I think. It would have been worse. Or it would really, really look bad if politicians continued with that thing. When you're saying
they had to put a halt to this anyway,
But
right?
then the
period of
conversation about it.
This is the thing. The conversation would have still continued on some level, but it is not happening, and it's ice, as what we see right now.
Dead completely.
you can't continue the conversation.
No, dead in the public eye.
In the public eye, right?
Dead in the media. But given the steam that was generated
the frenzy.
You will get something.
Well, I'm sure it's a back burner. It's something that's happening outside the glare of the public
eye.
But believe me, what's at stake and what the BBI represents, it's a conversation that has simply taken a back seat. Yes.
Well, let's see how long they can even hold on to this. So after next week's funeral, the state funeral, well, we can only hope. If the state funeral is on Wednesday, do you expect them to announce that, we'll be back on our rallies this Saturday?
Oh, come on.
Maybe not.
Probably not.
No.
Hopefully not, right? We can only hope. These are politicians. We can only hope. It's 18 minutes past 6 o'clock. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM and also streaming this morning on KTN News. Trix Ngado from KTN News is with us. Let's first take a look at what's happening. I got it right.
No, you didn't.
Trix Ngado. I think
That's
he
what
did.
I said.
He did. He got it right.
I have to ruffle his feathers.
Surely, City. Trix Ngado of KTN News is with us in the Situation Room this morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Well, of course, we're welcoming all our viewers on KTN News. Let's take a look at the weather and then continue with the conversation. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. The weather with Spice FM.
It's looking to be a clear day in Nairobi today, currently at 16 degrees with clear but periodic clouds. We're going to see a high of 26 and a low of 14 in the city today. Taking a skip over to Nakuru. Nakuru suddenly currently at 13 degrees. Also clear, but expecting rain later in the day at 27 the high and 13 degrees the low. Eldoret at 13 degrees currently. Expect clear skies, partly cloudy conditions later on with a high of 23 and a low of 12. Mombasa at 26 degrees right now. Mostly cloudy conditions through the day with a high of 31 and a low of 25. It's 20 degrees currently in Kisumu. Mostly cloudy conditions. Expect showers later on in the day with a high of 27 and a low of 19. It's a warm day in Malindi at 27 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, expecting rain later as well with a high of 31. And in Nyeri today at 14 degrees, expect rain showers through most of the day with a high of 25 and a low of 14.
Chilled Spice. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You're listening and watching Spice FM as Secret Situation Room and KTN News' Morning Express. I am Trix Ingada, joining the folks at the Situation Room, and today we're taking a look at what's making headlines. And the biggest story, obviously, is the death of Mzee Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. But there are other stories that have been making headlines, but have been put in the back burner. But still, we're going to discuss them. And the locust story has made headlines for weeks upon weeks. And today we have had a break. I think you'd have to look with a microscope to locate any new information. But then what say you about that disaster that is happening? 3/4 of the country has been swallowed up by said locusts.
Right. I think if we put this together in terms of what's happening with the rains, we're going to understand that probably this is a situation that's going to be exacerbated. We've seen that the rains are going to continue, and we've seen that the rains that would normally happen between March and May in this country are going to start about a month earlier, and they're going to end a month later. So the rains are probably going to continue way into now the rainy season. And then we talked about the fact that 500 new swarms of locusts could be expected by June.
Right.
Now,
500 new swarms.
Yes.
A swarm has how many million?
70 million.
Yeah.
70
All right.
million, okay?
So we can't even do that math. 70 times 500. CT.
I don't
Mwalimu.
think the calculator will
70
agree.
Times 500.
That's
35, and then you put in all those zeros.
3.5. 3.5
Billion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Locusts
Yes.
coming to Kenya.
The thing to understand, though, is that we need to then make the connection between the rains, the extended rains, and the fact that the locusts then will not go anywhere, because again we're looking at new vegetation as a result of the rain, which is where the locusts thrive and which is what they depend on for food, and they will not go anywhere if there is food available.
And while they're thriving, they're on food. It's
They're
basically
breeding.
our food,
Yes,
and they're
yes.
breeding, and
Yeah.
that means we might have to be putting in systems to ensure that if there's any food insecurity, we are ready for that.
Might.
We should for sure. We were warned about them coming. We did not react appropriately, and now we need to be actually putting in stopgaps to ensure that we're not dealing with famine.
On this show, a number of times we've called for the government to look at it and declare a state of emergency,
Yeah.
and basically just call it a national emergency. Dedicate all available resources to dealing with this. The Standard newspaper has also done the same, is that editorialized this issue and said, come on, government, look at this issue and call it a national emergency. This government is spending money on the BBI rallies.
Yeah.
Not even the task force. Task force you can fund, Mzee, Yusuf Haji and Amos Wako and the team. All right, go ahead with the BBI. But must we have these rallies? Must we have a rally in Kitui, a week later a rally in what? This is costing taxpayers because the county governments are organizing this. The national government is spending some money on this. It's still not very clear, and ICJ has said they've asked the government to tell them how is this money actually being drawn from the state coffers to finance these things. This is money that we should be spending on dealing with something like this. This is a disaster. Our food has actually been eaten.
And even before that, we're not having enough food already. We every year we hear about the people in Turkana suffering, and then now we're dealing with we're not even beyond zero, because we're moving from a negative because we are not food secure, and then we're having this thing that is taking away our reserves. Then we'll have more problems. Forget about the problems with distribution and infrastructure. And now, I like that you brought up the BBI issue, because if they're doing rallies, why not conferences? Tweak it so that we can justify that expenditure.
Exactly.
Tweak it into something that is more educational and that is going down to the mashinanis, to the barazas, in even mother tongue, so that people can understand that we can justify, well, we didn't deal with the locusts, but the money that we used on the BBI, it went to some...
It's going to feed us. No way. In fact, stop this BBI
BBI at all.
Look, food.
Yeah.
What do we need? Food, or do we need BBI?
Food for sure.
Who are you asking the question?
I'm asking everybody.
Oh, right. Okay. Of course, that definitely is a question that needs to be
Going
asked.
all
But
the
at
way
the
up.
same time, the thing is that we've been told what needs to be done in terms of what is necessary, what needs to happen. We are aware of what needs to happen. And now, of course, the issue that is being brought up is that there's no money. And I understand what you're saying, Eric, because at this point, how can there not be any money for this when there's money to do quite a number of other things in this country? And when you're looking at the source for the sustenance of the people, that then is not going to be... Look, it sounds very sensational sensationalist and it sounds like we're trying to, draw up a lot of drama for nothing. But this is what we were going to be dealing with in the next 5 months. In the next 5 months, we are going to see famine, a drought in this country, because that is how the weather patterns happen.
Everybody plus their grandmother has told us.
We see this. We know
the
this
UN
is what is
has
going
told
to
us,
happen.
look, guys, this is the worst in 70 years in Kenya. This is going to have a huge impact. You need billions of shillings to deal with it immediately. In fact, they were saying billions of dollars to deal with it immediately.
And they very simply said what needs to happen is ground spraying.
Yes.
Again, aerial spraying will not work. Ground spraying is what needs to happen. And the answer now that has been given, especially coming out of the Ministry of Agriculture, is that we don't have any money. And that we're waiting for money. I don't know. It's going to fall like manna from heaven.
And meanwhile,
we're waiting for money to get this done. But we have the solution. We have the answer. But we're just not able to do it.
Meanwhile, the locals are using pans and mabatis to...
And removing children from school to scream at locusts. It sounds preposterous, but that is actually what is happening.
Yeah.
Right? At some point, they couldn't do it alone. So they went to the head teachers and they said, please release your children and let them come and scream at the locusts. And that is what they did for hours on end.
How did that work?
It didn't really.
Yeah.
They just moved from one
So these locusts
to another.
I mean, these very insensitive locusts, they don't understand that this effort is supposed to essentially make them go away.
No,
they're not.
They
They're not even understanding that we're in a period of mourning. Everything else has stopped. Locusts don't know.
It's a pity that what's going to grind this country to a halt is not even our politics. It's locusts and the floods. And if there's anything that is going to show the ineptitude of the leadership in this country, again, locusts
and the floods.
Yes, because we're talking about children in Kakamega Primary School not going to school. There are children who have not gone to school since the year began. And simply because of the floods.
Yeah.
And now come the locusts. Then comes the famine. And these, you can't actually reverse it. So what on earth are we going to do? And yet, our leaders seem to think that it is, as you say correctly, important to have these expensive rallies. They think this is important. It means
it's for the greater good, good of the country.
There is a profound dislocation between what it is that the country needs, the problems it has and the solutions that are at hand that need to be implemented, and what the political leadership seems to think is important.
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge disconnect, really. I mean, in terms of moving forward, we keep talking about, it's very interesting that even in these rallies that we hear, we're talking about for the development of Kenya, for the betterment of the country. But the very basic things that you need for people to be able to literally stand up and move and walk are not being put in place.
Yeah.
But the money or the resources then are being basically thrown down, a tunnel that really, at the end of the day, are not going to give us any results. You can predict what the political results are going to be, essentially. You can also, unfortunately, predict what is going to happen. Call it as it is. People are going to die from hunger.
It seems to be part of our entrenched national ethos. Damn the citizenry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you talk about the greater good, but you're not completing that phrase. The greater good of individual political careers. This is not about us.
It's not about us.
It's not about us. Yeah.
Yesterday we were talking about the brick and mortar emphasis that counties have when it comes to healthcare. You're putting up buildings, and yet the ones you already have, you aren't even utilizing. Because these buildings exist.
Yep.
If you travel around the country, I have, you will actually find health facilities with trees growing right in the middle of the house.
Oh, good grief, CT.
Yes.
And this has been constructed.
Beautiful, if you look at it, out of disuse. What you actually find is that the house has become a wildlife sanctuary.
This is actually true. Yes. We hosted here the deputy governor of Nyeri County, and she told us the same thing. When they were rolling out the pilot phase of UHC, they would go and find, a health dispensary had been created, had been built a long time ago, but it wasn't, sourced. It didn't have water, it didn't have electricity, it didn't have any equipment. So what happened? A disused building. Trees growing.
Some even have the facilities, they were factored in. Pipes for water and all that.
Yeah.
But disused. I mean, the thing was clearly just abandoned. Now, and yet there seems to be this need for leaders in the county government to keep putting up swanky new buildings. Now, and then these same buildings will not have the facilities that are required. There's no manpower, and if there's manpower, whatever else you need to ensure that the health facility runs as a health facility is non-existent. So, what on earth
are we doing?
Yes.
Well, but what's more important is the politics of the day.
That seems to have taken center stage. In fact, one could argue that the fastest growing religion in this country is politics.
Yes, it's true.
But also this is where we take a hit as media as well. Because look at how much we've given prominence to, how many videos and photos have you seen of the locusts? Have you seen them before and after? Have you seen
No.
This is how this area looked like before the locusts arrived, and this is what they've left. People cannot visualize this. They're just hearing their locusts and you're imagining these are grasshoppers.
Actually, consider, for instance, addiction. You see, we've been force-fed on political drama for so long that it's like we need a daily fix.
Right.
Yes.
But then there's the argument that we have to sell papers and pay our bills. So where does that sit? Because we're the same media that are... we depend on that. And then we have sort of institutionalized the audience to be used to consuming politics.
What city is calling a drug.
Yeah.
If you don't give these people a drug, they're not going to buy.
No, if you don't give them a fix.
Yes.
Fix, yeah.
If you have a situation where there is a chair throwing contest in Parliament, goodness, that will trend for weeks.
For weeks.
Yes.
That's what's going to be
Ratings.
Yes.
lit.
The good thing is, though, the seating in Parliament is actually fixed to the floor.
Thank God they did that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Especially even in the county assemblies.
It's fixed.
Yes.
Those days of the kanjus and kanjuras. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and the KTN News Morning Express. In Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We're also worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's take a look at traffic, and the conversation continues.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Right.
Traffic.
The absurdity that is Nairobi traffic continues to haunt many. So we're looking at having to get up at 5:30, or rather leave at 5:30 to be in town by 7, because if that doesn't happen, you're absolutely stuck. And this is the tale of Mombasa Road. Mombasa Road all the way this morning from Mlolongo and moving downwards towards the Cabanas is chock-a-blocked. It's bumper to bumper everywhere you look, really. And if we're going to look towards Jogo Road also, it's Buruburu towards town is bumper to bumper as well. It's very, very slow from Muthaiga towards Pangani, and that's the underpass. Looking at about 6:15, we were looking at a gridlock, and this of course is Thika Road and the Greater Thika Road, then all the way to the Safari Park Hotel. Traffic is not moving, folks, and very early this morning we are already at a standstill. So Thika Road, Mombasa Road is places to watch right now. Coming off of Langata Road and then trying to move towards the Timor roundabout, also we've got a serious traffic there, though Bagathi Way is a way to use. Looking for alternatives, let us know on that you can use the southern and the eastern bypasses. Let us know what you see and we'll spread the word. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Give us a call, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
90.9, Malindi 97.7. We live stream this show every morning on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, as well as our website www.spicefm.co.ke. For the whole of this week, starting today, we're also live for this hour on the Morning Express, KTN News, and that's why the Situation Room this morning. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga, Nduoko and Trixingado of KTN News. Let's take a look at the biggest news, of course, this morning. The Standard has published what it's calling the souvenir edition of the Standard. Heavy piece of newspaper. This is one that you want to buy and keep.
And frame.
And frame. Man who changed Kenya. This is Kenya's second president, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, who passed on in Nairobi, surrounded by his family. President Kenyatta has declared national mourning and flags to fly at half-mast. Mzee to be accorded a state funeral on February 12th, 2020. That's next week on Wednesday in Kabarak. State funeral. So yesterday, when this news broke, of course, only one of us in this room had experienced this kind of thing before. And this is CT Muga. In 1978, when the news was announced that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta has passed away, CT described it to us. And, just you can repeat that.
It's like, honestly, it's like the country came to a standstill. Even the weather seemed to have changed. I recall vividly the sun was shining, and as soon as that was red, it disappeared. It's probably just my imagination, but it disappeared,
it became dark.
And there were clouds, and it was dark, and I could not go back to work. It was a dull day. In fact, you actually got this impression. Even streets began to empty. People started going home. Now, you could argue it was the uncertainty of the times.
Yes.
But remember, this was the only president we knew. We knew him to be alive. So when you have a situation where this person who represents so much for your country, he is part of your daily lives, suddenly it's like a part of your life has gone.
Yeah.
Now that takes a bit of taking in. It's not even a pause. It's not even a hiatus. It's a halt.
Complete and direct halt.
Yes. And I didn't fully understand grief then. I just knew I was feeling a little sad. But it was actually grief, because it's this overwhelming feeling of sadness and loss. I'd never met the president. I only used to hear his voice on radio. And once in a while, I saw him on the black and white TV. Okay, but beyond that, no. But yet he represented so much.
Now, he was Baba Taifa.
Yes, and then you started recalling his anecdotes and how he began his speeches, Sasa Ndugu Zanguni, that sort of thing. You cannot imagine just how profound the impact of a leader passing away. I mean, think, for instance, if you've suffered a loss, say, of a parent, you have an idea of just the sense of loss that accompanies it. And it doesn't go away tomorrow or the day after. It never really goes away.
No, it doesn't.
What happens is that you find a way of accommodating it within your system, and you live with it. It's part of what we call the evolutionary process of mankind, of understanding that at some point
you
turn
adjust.
Yes, that your turn will come. But the President Kenyatta was our president for 15 years, 14 years. Now, when somebody is there for 24 years, that's like an entire generation. Believe me, in equal measure, there'll be people who feel he harmed them profoundly. Then there are those who will feel without him, they would never have been, not just anybody, anything.
Yeah.
And then there'll be those in the middle. But then there's this, the perspective of history, the perspective of the times, the perspective of what actually happens in such situations, the perspective of the world.
Right.
Not Africa, what was happening. In the absence of these things, it's very difficult to understand. And that's why we had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was supposed to get people to understand the genesis of some of these problems that we've had in the country that have dogged us for such a long time, understand the consequences, get people to actually talk about, bring out whatever it is they felt. Because if a parent was jailed, it affected the children.
Of course.
Siti, do you think then this statement on the Daily Nation that says good man, dirty game would actually really encapsulate?
That would be simplifying it profoundly.
Yeah.
Because there is no leader. Absolutely. You cannot find anyone who's been in a powerful position of leadership who is loved by everybody. It cannot and does not and will never happen. Okay. Especially in a political setup where there are political contests. No, they are always adversaries.
Cannot be all good and all powerful.
It never, not cannot, never is. Jesus Christ himself
was hated by many.
Right.
Yes. Prophet Muhammad, think of anyone who has held a position of leadership, whether it is religious or political, it doesn't, or civic. Believe me, it works that way. There are people who will like you, there are people who will not. And if you're in power for long, you accumulate greater numbers of the same. That's what happens.
I like what they've said there. So great, it's good man.
A dirty game.
Dirty game. It's a game. It's the circumstances that he found himself in. I mean, he was faced with very, very many odds throughout his tenure, 24 years. So there's a coup, there's political upheaval, there's international pressure, there's internal and external pressures. There's an economy that's trying to grow, and he's trying to expand education. All those things that he was dealing with on a daily basis. I mean, those are very many things to deal with. And if you look back,
And I was listening to one of the people who served under him. I don't exactly remember who, but he said even
it's good not to remember.
Yeah, but even during the time he was at Franklin Bet, when he was yielding to multipartyism, he did consider the greater trends in the world and the geopolitics and the pressure. So it was not just about him being in power. He was considering the changing times and where the world is at the moment. And therefore, he was faced with a lot of things that would influence his decision making.
He was alive to what was happening around him.
Yes.
Right. Well, speaking about the world, it's interesting because Tanzania President John Magufuli, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, and opposition leader in Uganda, Kizza Besigye, yesterday were among regional leaders who joined Kenyans in mourning. Excuse me, Magufuli said, on behalf of the Tanzanian government, I pass my heartfelt condolences to the President of Kenya and all Kenyans for the death of the retired President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Tanzanians remember him for his remarkable leadership and his efforts to strengthen the East Africa community relationship. Museveni described Moi as a leader who maintained stability in Kenya after the death of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and was always passionate about the East African regional integration. Besigye said, from humble beginnings and with a humble, submissive demeanor, President Moi emerged to become a skillful statesman. His main legacy is affording Kenya a peaceful transition to another leader, and he can now rest in peace. IGAD Executive Secretary Workney Gebeyu eulogized Moi as one of the body's founders, noting that the organization will forever be indebted to him for his valuable contribution to the region. Mm-hmm. Interesting that regional integration is, quite a major factor in the legacy that he holds. And this is coming from leaders in the region who remembered, who were not even in power at the time that he was, when he was planting a lot of these seeds, but it is something clearly that they remembered him for. And it has come out clearly.
One of the things that Africans do, they rarely speak ill of anyone who has passed away.
Oh, yes.
And we are accused of sanitizing.
That is a Western word that, it seems to imply some very thorough washing, cleansing. And it also implies something that isn't exactly honest. Because when you use the word sanitize, you are implying that this is something
it was
that
dirty.
Yes, and it requires a little whitewashing is required. Okay, but if you're talking about a political leader whose leadership spans that period of time, then please start from the time we discussed in 1955. Talk about his time as MP, talk about his time as vice president, then talk about his presidency, talk about the afterlife, and then take a look and just say, why don't we just start with East Africa and see who has a track record like that? And you'll have difficulties finding such a person. Then let's look beyond him and look at other leaders who've come in. And let's start with, were they dealing with the same problems as he was in his time? And the answer will be no. And how have they fared? And you'll find badly.
Yeah. And to what Ndu said about him, East African, integration, he championed that in a way that even economically, when he was cut off by some of these superpowers in terms of aid, he didn't look to Europe or the East. He looked into the region and figured out how Kenya can work together with East African nations to ensure that they are sustainable economically. And during that tough period, Kenya did not fall to ruin, because it would be expected. For example, in Zimbabwe, when they are cut off from aid and they have all these sanctions and what have you, they literally are struggling and crawling by. But Kenya survived owing to his efforts to work together closely with East African nations.
Remember, there's always a narrative that represents the perspectives of either the people who support the person in leadership or those who oppose him. We had this debate yesterday in this very room, and we're saying, okay, according to the predictions of the world bodies like IMF, World Bank, who keep telling us, they've chosen themselves to be the financial prophets of economic development or undevelopment. The country should have collapsed multiple times during the Moi era. It didn't.
Yeah.
We talked about the shilling and whether the shilling got devalued in the same manner that the Zimbabwe dollar got devalued. The answer was no. We asked, was there circulation of money in the country and were industries thriving? The answer was yes. Was schools ongoing? And we said, during that same period, that's when educational institutions in these countries mushroomed.
Yeah.
But there are those who will say that during that period there was a lot of repression as well. Now, let me ask the question. Is there any country on this planet who simply sits by idly and watch people who oppose it just thrive and grow and bloom and mushroom? Which
Nowhere.
one? Which
Nowhere.
one?
In fact, even the ones that you talk about, Lee Kuan Yew and all the others, there are people who will tell you it was a period of repression. And then there are those who will tell you that, yeah, during that period that you're calling repression, we emerged.
Yes.
We actually rose from that period. The Standard today on page 62 of the Standard, which is just like halfway through the paper.
Should we actually call this a paper? Why don't we just call it, yes, the book.
Yeah.
An entire coffee table publication.
Yes.
The Nyayo years in numbers, and I have one here in 1982, 1.3 trillion shillings, the size of Kenyan economy when Moi retired in 2002. When he became president, the economy was at 530 billion. So 1978, economy 530 billion. 24 years later, 1.2 trillion. 1.9%, the inflation rate in 2002, down from 16.9% in 1978. The number of business registered in the informal sector as at 2002, 6.3 million, a huge leap from 113,000 in 1978. 6.85 million, the number of people in employment as of 2002, up from 1 million in 1978. Numbers will always tell you.
Numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
Yes.
This is what happened. Right?
There are those who would argue, of course, that the population increased within
Of
those
course,
24
yes.
years. But it is good that these statistics indicate that they were keeping up with the rise in population as well.
Yes.
Yes,
There
that-
were 17,000 primary schools at the time Moi was retiring, up from 9,000 in 1978. Secondary schools increased to 11,000 in 2002, up from less than 6,000 in 1978.
Right.
essentially
Kenya's
doubling.
public debt in 2002 was 583 billion, up from an approximate 10 billion in 1978. What's our public debt now?
That one, you respond to that question with a whistle.
Some whistles, I
Yes.
think, would be necessary at this point to express then these numbers that we're talking about.
Right. Interesting. And can we just pause and,
Yes.
and acknowledge the pictorials on all the dailies today? Amazing stuff right here. I'm discovering so much. This one with him holding a guitar is on the business daily, and this one I would actually consider iconic.
That is a one for
my co-host keeps raving about this
Oh,
picture. and obviously there's so much more. On the Daily Nation, we have Moi and diplomatic moves that shaped him and his presidency. We have him here with Bill Clinton, Margaret Thatcher. We have Nelson and Winnie Mandela right there, Yoweri Museveni, Mugabe, and then Colombian President Ernesto Sampa. And I'm sure there's more that they did not just have space to put. And then the Standard, as you said, is just awash.
Yesterday they had him with the Queen.
Imagine that.
Right.
Yeah, so I
No
want to
less.
see. I want to see a nation where political differences do not mean personal antagonism. I mean, we could embody that type of speak right now with the BBI shenanigans.
There are actually some of the very beautiful quotable quotes by the Standard this morning. Page 36 and 37 is just quotable quotes by the president. We cannot eat political ideologies. Something that he
Tell
said.
them.
Patriotism is a spiritual cement of unity. Some beautiful words. What do you
Yeah. want?
He often asked those who constantly showered him with praises. Oh, mzee mtakatifu. Unataka nini? Just get to the point.
Yeah.
All right? What do you want?
And also the picture of him, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, and I don't know who this is actually.
Which one?
The middle guy.
Oh, this one is Julius Kiano.
Yeah.
Read the caption, Tricks.
I can't see. Oh yeah, there it is. Julius
Gikonyo
Gikonyo
Kiano.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he was vice president with the president right there. Very iconic.
Dr. Julius
imagery.
Gekonyo Keano was what? The first African Kenyan to actually have a PhD, right?
Just to start.
Yeah.
Then at independence, he was the person who was in charge of the Ministry of...
Information.
No, not information.
edu-
Commerce, Baba.
Commerce.
Yes.
Ah.
The Africanization process was under his docket. Yes. Yes. And he's one of those people whose political life was of great interest to this country because when people talk about development, you needed to look at a certain part of the country called Muranga, where there was a certain Kenneth Matiba and a certain Julius Gikonyo who fought some epic political battles. And the grass didn't suffer. People benefited.
This is one of those.
Oh, yes, because when the competition was for development, one would bring piped water, when he was Minister for Water, of course, and the other was chairman of breweries, would employ people by the truckloads and breweries. Of course, I'm exaggerating, of course. But the people of Murang'a benefited.
Right.
Yes.
And he was very big on education, as you can see from the pictures, sports, environment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He was. We're looking back at the life and times of Mzee Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, as covered in today's dailies. Of course, all dailies this morning have specials. The Standard has one, The Nation is that, the Business Daily, The Star, The People Daily, all of them are looking back at that. Of course, the Standard is being the oldest newspaper, has all the archives. So basically, the Standard has gone all out, splurge out the archives, putting out all those pictures, beautiful photos. More than, how many pages is the Standard today? Close to 100, man. It's 79, 80 pages. 80 pages of a newspaper. 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room. We are integrated with the Morning Express show. I'm Trix Ingara joining the crew on the Situation Room, just taking a look at the dailies as well as the biggest story of the day, which is former President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi's former life and times that has been aptly represented in all the dailies this morning. So we're going to take a look at that and much, much more in various aspects. There's so many angles and tales and anecdotes and quotes and just tributes from all those that knew him, national leaders from across the world.
Actually, it's getting to a point where you think there's a competition.
Yeah?
Yes. Who is going to say what? And I haven't spoken. You must give me an opportunity.
Yeah, tell us.
But you see, this is what points to something that people may have been in denial about. Whatever you may say, he impacted the lives of very many people in this country.
Sure.
Of course.
And that impact is generational. It wasn't just a group of people and then it sort of like faded away. And this discussion is going to go on forever. I was listening to BBC yesterday, and Miguna was being interviewed. What I found interesting about the interview was he had nothing positive to say about Boy. Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. I paused and said,
Not one.
That's Miguna, man.
Yeah.
yes.
It's not a surprise.
I am simply
You were not
giving this
surprised,
as an example. No, I wasn't. I was saying, well, I've heard people say things that sound negative, but they're talking about the experiences, which were clearly not positive. But at the end, they say, but there was also this and this and this.
No.
Miguna, there was no but, there was. It was just one thing.
Yeah. And I love that there's some people who just the small thing of the Nyayo milk is all they rave about. And I mean, that when you look at the pictures and the how it's been covered, it shows that he did touch people, not just on a national level, but also on a personal level. My co-host was telling me how he was given a wad of cash when he was a boy by Moi. Yeah, just
Michael
like
was
that.
given
Yeah,
cash
that's what he said. Yeah, he's like Kijana Kuja. And then, so it's really interesting.
He's royalty.
We need to have a conversation with Michael.
Yeah, we need to have a conversation with Michael. He got some cash directly from
Directly, yeah. Called his aide, said Kijana Kuja, and
He's one of those, eh?
yeah.
Well, it's interesting that across sector, I mean,
But randomly, not that it was a bribe or anything. It was just random on the streets.
This is a rider. This is a rider to what you said.
Well,
We're still going
like
to.
Mzee would ask, what do you want?
What do you want?
We should ask, what did he want?
Please remember also that what we now consider to be a bribe, or what constitutes a bribe, in any African setting, there are two things you didn't do. When you went visiting, you never went empty-handed.
Yes.
Number one, all right? And when you are in the presence of younger people, you always left them with a gift.
Absolutely. And then a lot of times it was money.
Yeah.
Yes, it is what... it's what you had.
You could,
okay?
yeah.
In an earlier time when we didn't have the fiduciary issue that we had, you'd find older gentlemen going to look at the young men herding cows. They would carry some form of other dried chicken or something in a pouch. So this is something they would dish out, they would dole out. In many African communities, elders didn't eat chicken because a chicken was considered a bird. Okay? It was meant for small children.
Eating birds.
Yes. Neither did they eat eggs.
Yeah.
Those were meant for children. Okay. Now, again, if you do not consider that you cannot judge a person like Moi purely from a political perspective, then you will probably get the balance right. And you have to sort of like demarcate and say, okay, what are we judging him on? Because it's judging. What are we eulogizing him on? You have to be specific. Those within the circles of the church will have nothing but glowing reports about the president. Those who are in the education sector will tell you,
wonderful.
Without this man, the education that we take for granted in this country would not be what it is. And it is true.
Yeah.
If you talk about his political foes, they will tell you a completely different story, and they'll paint a picture of somebody you probably wouldn't want to meet. If you talk to people who are his political allies, they will give you very positive stories. Now, this is the dichotomy of a leader. This, in case there are people who think that a leader only represents... No, it is not possible to represent one thing if you are given the responsibility of the lives of that many people. And in a political situation, not possible.
There are very many people who, of course, were going all negative yesterday about the former president. They were saying, we cannot forget, we cannot ignore the Wagala massacre. We cannot ignore the people who died. Robert Ouko, we cannot ignore the other people who were killed during his time.
Yes.
And he was the head of state.
Yes.
And then you find a way of countering that and saying, all right, so look at the circumstances and all, but at the same time, we must acknowledge that these things happened.
And there was that apology. The famous apology.
Oh, we debated that yesterday here.
Was that an apology? Was that blanket?
Was that an apology? Was that something that should have been accepted? But it was interesting yesterday because, of course, times have changed and quite a lot of information we get definitely comes through social media.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of recounts and even things that had been recounted 3-4 years ago then were brought to our remembrance yesterday, and people were talking about their personal experiences and the horror and tragedy that they went through. I mean, under the Moi regime. So I mean, like you say, Eric, this is something that cannot be ignored because it comes out and people's hurt is still clearly evident. People's horror is still being lived till today as a result of that.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, of course not.
Trix, we've got to let you go.
Yep.
Go back to your studio. Thank you for coming to our studio. Invite us to yours.
You're welcome.
Tomorrow, of course. Tomorrow you'll be back here.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Trix and Garo from KTN News. So say goodbye.
Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed being in the Situation Room. The papers have been very entertaining this morning, and I'm looking forward for more of this type of engagement. So,
thanks, Trix.
Yeah, I'm off.
Thank you. See you.
See you tomorrow.
And thank you very much for everybody in Morning Express. Of course, now it's 7 o'clock. The conversation continues right here on Spice FM. We'll be joined shortly by former controller of State House, Franklin Bett. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, Mombasa Road becoming hectic. Well, I think we already have reached hectic levels. Far back as now the Way Bridge and trying to head into the city centre. Quite a lot of people are trying to use the roads that will now bring you around to the Inland Container Depot. Otherwise, then going forward and using the Southern Bypass as a way to get into the city, or using the Eastern Bypass. But then we see that is clogged as well as you get off the junction at the North Airport Road. So sorry, folks, I don't have better news, but that is one you have to contend with today. Jogo Road starting to build up at Hamza, flowing slowly is what I was trying to say. As we move then, trying to see what other parts are looking like. Langata Road, we already see a mess. It's 8 lanes on some parts of Mombasa Road. Sorry, before we go to Langata Road. So if you don't have to be there this morning right now, please do not. Langata Road also, we're at 6 lanes so far. The same thing on Kiambu Road. Everywhere you look around the city, it is chock-a-blocked, bumper-to-bumper situations. So be patient. If you find an alternate, let us know on Twitter at SpiceFMKE or give us a ring 0719 012 600 and we'll keep you moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi 94.4, in Mombasa 87.9, 102.5, Kisumu 96.0, in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We live stream the show on www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also on Twitter, SpiceFMKE, YouTube, SpiceFMKE, as well as Facebook, SpiceFMKE. You can tune in and watch us. Of course, we were live for the last 1 hour on KTN News as well, in the Morning Express, joined by Trix Ingado. They'll be back here tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Now, we have a special guest in the studio. This is Mzee Franklin Bet. Mzee Franklin Bet was the State House Comptroller for a number of years. During the Moi years, this was in 1996 to 1998. He was a Comptroller of State House. Of course, after that, he went into politics. He was a minister in the succeeding governments. We'll talk to him about a number of things, of course, today, remembering the life and times of retired President, former President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Franklin Bet, karibu sana.
Good morning, asante sana.
Asante for joining us. Now, of course, you served under Mzee Moi when you were Comptroller of State House. And those days, when you had a Comptroller of State House, in fact, it would come on KBC, Comptroller of State House, Franklin Bet. And you'd know, hey, there's Mzee, and then there's Franklin Bet. There's power.
Asante.
You felt the power. Tell us how you got there. How did he appoint you?
I must admit, I think you are the first person I come across pronouncing the holder of that office, Comptroller.
Others call it Controller.
Others call it Controller. Otherwise, it's Comptroller of State House. I also am impressed on the way you have summarized my stay there. Put together is about 15 years in State House. Mm-hmm. A large part of it was as Deputy Comptroller of State House. And I was largely involved initially in preparation of reports for the President to use in his trips across the country, or preparing notes that he would use when talking to people of all shades of life. Then later on, or just alongside that, I was doing coordination of speeches. I was in that for quite some time also, involved in writing of speeches.
So what we heard Mzee saying,
with the late,
it was you?
Yes. That is true. With my good friend, the late Fares Kuindwa. Fares Kuindwa would, at the end of the day, translate the speech into Kiswahili. So whatever Mzee was reading was done, coordinated by myself and Fares Kuindwa, who was the Kiswahili master at that time. Interestingly, he did most of his translations at the government press. So that as he was translating, it was going into the machine.
What? So he's just doing it right there and it's getting printed?
Yes, and he caused me all the time to proofread, and I kept on saying, Fares, I'm not proficient in Kiswahili. And he was saying, but you read on. And then I would read on, and then when he's doing that translation, I would then be preparing the transport together with the Office of the President, the Office of the Permanent Secretary Administration, preparing the transportation of the same to the whole country. You remember the district commissioners, beginning from the PC, would have to read the same speech the president is reading at either Nyayo Stadium or Uhuru Park, wherever he was reading the statement. It was largely those two locations. So as soon as we were through, then we would load them in those choppers. So they would go their way in various directions, although we were just matching some districts. If we went to Northeastern, he would be hopping Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Moyale. He would hop into all those. So you would all be surprised. This thing has been prepared in Nairobi, and it is now circulated the whole country.
Yeah, Mzee is at Nyayo Stadium reading a speech.
Yeah.
And there's a DC somewhere who's reading the same
speech. Yes. That is the way it was done.
So this would happen overnight?
It would happen overnight, mainly. But you know, sometimes also, he would read. The one thing I give credit to Moi, he read his speech before, he read his draft speech.
Before the address.
And interestingly, he was reading it loudly. He would just pick up those cards and read them one by one loudly. And you go to his office, you find him reading, like he's reading to...
He's addressing the
crowd, yeah. And out of there, he would pick some errors. Or he would pick, I don't want this to go out. And then you find him on, let's say, on the eve. Said, Bet, ikitu aingi vizuri, nataka wewe unilainishie hapa. And that is on the eve. It is tomorrow when it is being read. And then that is what you would call burning midnight oil.
And then now you send to Faris at a government printer to translate.
No, Faris was in Arambe House.
All right.
So I would call him, we converge at the government printer's office.
Before you put together these things that you're putting together in a speech, would you have a conversation, a meeting with the president and decide what do you want to talk about on Jamhuri Day?
Yes. He would give you kind of an outline of what he would want to transmit to the people out there. And then you would then call the relevant ministries. If it is on agriculture, if it's on education, if it is on security, it's on foreign affairs, whatever he is told you to do. There were some things, of course, which were standard. Like you would have to mention something about foreign affairs issues. Then you would now have to coordinate, calling the Ministry of Agriculture, calling the Ministry of Finance, all these ministries. You would call them in, all of them, so that they would submit their drafts or what you would call the notes on the issues you would want. Then you come and put it together.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So you are, of course, the deputy comptroller, and then you rose to comptroller. Now you became the man. What exactly does a comptroller do?
A comptroller does exactly what a permanent secretary does. It's only the name.
Right.
Otherwise, it is the same. It's an accounting.
So
it's an accounting
PS
officer.
State House.
PS State House. What if you want to say? It's an accounting officer. It's a person who manages the affairs of that unit.
So State House was essentially like a ministry.
It's just like a ministry. Yeah, you can call it a super ministry because the minister is the president himself.
Yes. But how about now running the calendar? Like if anybody wanted to see Mzee Moi, must they come through Franklin Bet?
Not necessarily. Yes, people would call, and they are calling either my office or calling the office of the president. And then the secretary would then cascade what the president has agreed with XYZ, that he is coming on this day. And he keeps it. I mean, when it came to, let us say, he gave to Lati 11 o'clock, he would be asking for you, Lati, at 11 o'clock. not at 11:30.
So he knows 11 o'clock I'm supposed to meet with Eric, and he asked,
yes,
why Wapi Eric?
Eric must be there.
So I hear you saying he was aware. He was aware. He was in touch. Was he in touch then with a lot of the happenings around, as opposed to somebody telling him, this is happening at this time? He knew what was supposed to be happening.
Yeah, he was a man, first of all, with a photographic memory. The way I saw him, he could remember that far in time. So if you line up that tomorrow we have X, Y, Z, A, B, C, all this, he knows you have told him 8 o'clock, you expect X. 9 o'clock, you expect X. Y. 11 o'clock, you expect the ambassador of Ireland to present his credentials. So he knows. And he keeps it. He's able to say...
So every meeting happens on time? Starts on time, ends on time?
Yes. That's what no, it may not end on time.
That's what I was about to ask.
Because the dynamics of talking may spill over in terms of time.
Yeah.
But starting, it was almost to the point of minute. That is when he had. If you watched him also across the country, I know you can remember.
So you can remember?
Yes.
I know you can remember. Ikesemekana anaingia saa 5 kwa Oyugis. Saa 5 kamili ako Oyugis.
Yes.
Na anaanza mkutano yake. So he continues kwa mkutano yake. But the one thing which he never allowed most of his time ni kutembea kwa ndege. Alikuwa na uwezo wa kutembea na ndege, lakini alikuwa nakataa.
Why?
The reason is, I'm going to Oyugis, and you are starting from Kisumu State Lodge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, that is a stretch where there are people. There are shopping centers. There are schools. So he was all the time feeling like touching the people.
He needs to see the people.
He needs to see it, yeah. Once in a while, he would listen to, if he comes by Mzee like him, and Sema, I want to say something, he would allow him. So that way, he would be knowing the situation in that location.
So that was his way of actually getting a pulse.
Yes.
On the ground.
Yes.
This is what people feel between Kisumu and Oyugis.
Yes.
This is the feeling on the ground.
Yeah.
And then he'd also give out a lot of money there.
Yeah, even, the children, the children would also shout what they need.
Yes.
You could find them saying, bas. You could saying, mukate, or something like that. Or vitabu. So he would know that these children don't have books. He would know these children, when they talk of mukate, chakula is not adequate.
Yeah.
Not adequate.
Yeah.
He would know when mkulima said, bei ya kahawa, bei ya majani chai.
Yes.
Yeah, then he would know that there is something wrong with the bei ya majani ya chai. Then the following week, he would then be summoning the Minister for Agriculture to ask him. I was in this route, and I found people talking about all that.
So his travails were you could call them fact-finding missions, really.
Yes, they were.
At the same time.
At the same time. At the same time.
He actually used to call it inspecting development.
Yeah.
And kukagua maendeleo.
Yeah.
Right? It's
the one I will always remember is Sogumchinga.
Limuru.
Is it Limuru? No.
Uplands.
It's actually the border of central Kenya and the Rift Valley.
Yes.
Yes.
That is it. You're correct.
Yes.
When you pass by there, and I think you pass by there a couple of times.
Very often.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see a very busy vegetable market.
Yes. Muddy as well.
And muddy as well, yes. It was not there.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't there at all.
No, it wasn't.
But it was all started by Moi stopping there every weekend on our way back from Nakuru into Nairobi.
I see.
So we would stop there. People are selling roast maize there. People are selling sukuma wiki, cabbage, potatoes, tomatoes. And he would randomly buy almost all of them. And he never takes any.
He gives
The beneficiaries are?
The beneficiaries are the same owners once in a while.
Or you guys.
Or you tell me, bet mwambia hao vijana yako wachukue. Hii ni viazi mzuri sana hii. Mwambia hao vijana yao wachukue. Hii ni kabichi safi. Mchukue. And then you would be seeing some roasting going on here. kumbe anaangalia vizuri kani ni mzuri kwa hii mahindi. So anaanza kuangalia, alafu anasema betwe shikia mimi. And you know what he said.
Yes.
He loved taking roast maize. So he would take it and then he says, nunua yote hivi jana yako wewe pera hii namna hii. So inaenda kwa watu. So and he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. You have talked about money.
Yes.
It wasn't much when it came to buying all those. But he always saw it fit to give to a school to buy mkate kwa watoto. In fact, at one time, he almost caused the establishment of a bakery in Cabernet to be the source of most of his bread.
Because every school
needed bread. So we would go and watoto wanasema mkate. Then he would say, hey, Hosea, that's Hosea Giplagat. Hosea, weka mkate hapo. The beggar was, I think it was Kiplagat himself or a relation. Then the bakery flourished.
Right, because of
that, yes, you see, it flourished.
Let's take a short break and then we come back and continue. Of course, I'd like to know how you accounted for that, like how much money you'd put in his car, because every time he stops, he gives out cash, to these groups of people. He's buying maize, he's buying whatever, he's giving children money. We'd like to understand how he lived. This is why we invited you here this morning. In the studio with us is Franklin Bett. Franklin Bett was a comptroller of State House, and of course before that he was a deputy comptroller. He worked in State House for, he's told us, about 15 years. Did a lot with Mzee Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. We are relooking and reliving the years of the Moi State House, inside Moi's State House. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, at 18 minutes past 7. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. .9 Spice FM, Mombasa. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, we're looking at mostly sunny conditions today in Nairobi at 16 degrees. We'll expect a high of 26 and a low of 14 in the city today. Taking a look at Nakuru, where it's sunny all through this morning at 14 degrees. However, expect some rain later on with a high of 27 and low of 14. Eldoret at 13 degrees right now is mostly sunny. Expect these conditions to go through the day with a high of 27. In Mombasa at 26 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions with a high of 32 and a low of 26. We're expecting some rain in Kisumu later on with a high of 28 and a low of 19. It's currently at 20 degrees with mostly cloudy conditions. 27 degrees in Malindi, mostly cloudy. Expect rain later on with a high of 31 and a low of 26. Rounding it out in Nyeri, it's sunny at 15 degrees. Expect rain though later with a high of 25 and a low of 14.
96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're back. The conversation continues. Franklin Bett, former State House Comptroller, he's telling us about the years and working in President Daniel Arap Moi's State House. Mzee, just as we continue the conversation, Give us the boy's like daily routine from the moment he'd wake up to the moment he goes to sleep. Like, what time would he wake up? We've heard very many stories. He woke up early, he slept late. How was it like?
Yeah, I think people are also entitled to speculate. Because you would want to do that so that you may get the right information.
Yes.
Like I said earlier on, his day began there about 3-4 o'clock, when he would begin and get down onto his Bible. And in reading the Bible, he marked the various verses that attracted him or that touched his heart. Mm-hmm. He would mark them. He would felt bent to them. And then thereafter, of course, he says a word of prayer. That is all that is happening in his bedroom. Mm-hmm. And then would take a quick look at the newspapers. Then do a kind of roundup calls to the various organs of government, mm-hmm. Mainly provincial administration.
What time is this making these calls? 4 a.m., 5 a.m.?
They're about 5, towards 5, 6
My
o'clock.
Goodness.
Towards 5 o'clock.
And so this is the famous red line, the hotline.
The hotline, yes, to keep himself abreast of the goings on in the countryside. And thereafter, excuse me, then he would take a quick breakfast and then motor on into State House, arriving at State House between 6:30, maybe latest 7 o'clock. Mm. He would come 7 o'clock just because somebody popped into his Cabernet Gardens home for some consultations. Those were mainly political issues, because you would not expect a provincial commissioner or a minister
to go to Cabernet
Gardens very early in the morning. So those were mainly politicians. A politician out of Nyeri, a politician out of Kericho, out of your various homes. I only understand you are
Nigerian.
A little bit far away.
But there could be somebody also out of that place. Mm. Yeah. That's how we would come late to the office. Mm. On reaching the office, of course, we the staffers are already in there. So you can imagine the junior staff would be arriving about 5 o'clock. Mm. So to clean up the place, organize the offices and all that stuff. And we would then arrive ourselves in between 5:45 and 6:15. And then he would arrive himself towards invariably 6:15, 6:45. Then he would arrive into the office. On arriving once in a while, he would then summon the chiefs of security, the DCI, the NIS person, once in a while the CGS, the head of police, and the PS administration, just to give a quick overview on the state of the nation. And after that is done, then we would sit down to also maybe have another breakfast. And now the real breakfast, that was a quick one. And breakfast sessions were invariably having invited people or people who have expressed the wish to be there. Mm-hmm. He also used these occasions of taking breakfast to solicit information in his own way from those attending. Or even ourselves.
This man was an information gatherer. From 5 a.m. He's just been gathering information.
Yes, he was.
I remember the man was a teacher.
Yes.
And teachers have a certain mindset. I speak as a former teacher.
This man is a teacher. So of course.
But that is true.
So he had to bring in the teacher aspect.
Yes, but it is true. Teachers have a certain mindset.
Yeah.
Yes. They're information seekers.
The flow of information is actually their trade.
Yes.
Yeah. So he would then maybe invite, tell me, he's so-and-so at the gate. Said, yes, because pengine walikuwa wamezungumza na yeye hapo awali. Then he would again be getting this information. Yeah. And then he would say, oh, Bet, or Kiptanui, or Linjiru. Hiyo nilisikia jana ilikuwa nini? And then we would explain what it was. So anasema, that time when Kiptanui was controller, we unitie A, B, C, D. Because of what has transpired here. He now wants to actualize or to get implementation or get further clarification on those issues. And the day will roll on like that. The day will roll on like that. Somewhere along the way, he could say, lete magari bwana. Sema tunaenda wapi mzee? Sema hii Kenya ni yetu hii. Na usifikirie tumezaliwa kukaa ndani ya nyumba. Ni kuangalia dunia. And then the vehicles are called in. And you know what he does? He just oscillates around Nairobi.
Just go around.
Just go around, addressing people, seeing what they are doing. Again, buying this and that, and greeting them. And it made the people feel good. Our president is here. He's around with us.
He was ever present.
Yes.
This is the thing about...
You can say almost like we say on God, omnipresent. He was all over. Then we would come back and all that. Lunch hour was not like any other lunch hour in State House that I have seen since him. I went for lunch when Kibaki was the president. I've not been to lunch with this one now. But it's not like Moi's lunch hour. The table was quite long.
A long one.
It was a long one. And full of fruits. That's what I used to do. And he would be having strangers on this table up to 10. By strangers, non-staffers.
Right.
Non-members of his...
outsiders.
Outsiders, you would say. And again, he does what you said, Eric, collecting information. Like Malibu said, collecting information.
It's a trade.
Yeah, and of course, there are stories. I mean, there are human stories, which he would share with them. Which stories he would later on also use in public gatherings. Those stories, just to use them to interpose or
yes.
Interpose.
Yes.
Interspersed.
Whatever it is, when he's addressing the public. And there were juicy stories also. And the people, you would find them getting excited. Or you would get some new word for this generation
and throw it into
the congregation, into the public.
Yeah.
And the public would say, mzee anaelewa bwana. Ako
Mzee is in touch.
kabisa.
These guys who would come,
yeah.
When they are leaving, would they go away with a briefcase each or bahasha?
I heard about this briefcase outside, but I never saw it inside there. I heard about it inside.
And you're the accounting officer, so you didn't know that,
And there was no money coming from the public office.
Kuna watu 40, wacha nitayarishe 40,000.
No, let me make it abundantly clear. He never got into the public coffers in those monies you are talking about. None. He lived on donations from friends. A friend would come by with so much.
So people would come with the briefcases.
Yeah, and give him money. Some would even come and just give him money and go away. And that is the way he did it. So, like even in church, believe you me, and he told me point blank, never, never, ever give to God money which has been given to you from a source that is not known to you. Then I asked him one time, what is it? He said, you never know. Maybe it was used for some ceremony, which is ungodly. So if you asked any clergyman of those days, he will tell you, I received a check from Moi. And the check would be reading Kenya Kabarak Farm Limited. All of them.
His own money.
His own. He said, mimi nampatia Mungu pesa ya chasho yangu. kwa sababu hiyo ndio pesa ninaelewa how it has been gotten.
So these are the people who would come with briefcases. Would you now also question you were happy?
I never questioned them one time.
Why?
Because I also never saw them.
It never happened openly.
It never happened openly. It never happened openly.
You know, there are those who also say that indeed there were gifts. You know, before you came in, we were discussing the African way of doing things, and we were saying, and anyone in an African community, not just Kenyan, who was considered a mzee, one, you never went to visit anybody empty-handed.
That's true.
And also when you had visitors, you also did not let them go away empty-handed.
That's true.
So this same money, it is said, that came in, it is this same money when people came in, other people would be given gifts and said, look, we've had your problem, you require assistance, here it is. Yes.
In fact, you remember,
Yes.
long time ago, our chiefs,
Yes.
they had lots of coats in their compound. Yes. Na hiyo mbusi,
Ni ya kupeana.
na kiopeana.
Yes.
So we are going to see the chief today. And hatuwezi kuenda na mkono mtupu.
You never did.
Yeah, you never did that.
You bring a goat.
You bring some gift.
You always went with a gift.
With a
to the
gift.
Chief, yes.
Now, those are the gifts which Moi was extending it out.
Okay.
So I want to disabuse any notion that he was getting his hand into public coffers.
You'd always ask the comptroller, sign off some 2 million shillings every day.
I never did that.
Ya kupeana.
I never did that. And my predecessor and the current ones have never done it. We never did it.
We have in the studio Franklin Bett. He was a former State House Comptroller. He served in the State House as Comptroller between 1996 and 1998. Before that, he was a Deputy Comptroller. He had also served in various capacities, serving for Mzee Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, the second President of the Republic of Kenya. Of course, we want to understand Moi's State House and how it was functioning. Interesting stories coming out of this. Let's first take a look at the traffic, and then the conversation continues. 28 minutes to 8 o'clock.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
So folks are experiencing some fog in Kitengela. That means that visibility is low, so people are moving a little bit slower than they ordinarily would. Getting down the Greater Mombasa Road, of course, it becomes a little bit clearer, but still doesn't change the fact that there's quite a lot of traffic on this road still. Now, there's a lot of impatience and overlapping going on, folks, so this compounds the traffic issue. Ngong Road at the Junction Mall is very, very slow, but past Kenya Science, much easier as you get to the City Mortuary roundabout. Coming off of Langata Road, of course, we still have that bumper-to-bumper situation right around Galleria Mall, going towards then Bomas of Kenya, and then, of course, trying to approach the city, the T-Mall roundabout. Thika Road, the traffic starts at Garden City. Before you get to the Pangani underpass, it's going to be a slow minute. In the middle of the city, of course, we still do have a bit of a hold up as people try to get in and out. Let us know what you see. Of course, the southern and eastern bypasses are options coming from Thika Road or Mombasa Road, depending on where you're going. Spice FM KE on Twitter, or give us a call 0719 012 600.
96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
One of the things that is often not understood or clearly understood is that when someone is in a position of authority for a long period of time, you only look at the time, but you don't consider the time, space, and changes that come about as a factor of time. 1978, President Daniel arap Moi becomes President of Kenya. In 1988, the geopolitical situation on this planet had changed completely. If you push that to just the year 2000, even greater changes had taken place. So when you want to judge this person, and I use the word judge, in the most academic way possible, if you do not take into consideration these specific and salient factors, you are then not looking at that man in the correct light. If you look at, say, world leaders who started their leadership in the 19th century and carried it on to the 20th century, at what point do you start looking at their lives and the impact that they made? At the tail end of it, at the middle, at the beginning? If you look at, I'm thinking of two leaders, Mao Zedong, and I'm thinking of Stalin. Now, these are leaders who impacted on this world phenomenally. And among the things people know them for are the number of people who died as a result of the leadership. But then there are those who will tell you, in the absence of these people, the countries that they ruled over would not have been what they were. So the question you ask, what exactly do you look at? So it brings me back to what I said earlier on. You cannot expect anyone who's been in a strong position of leadership over a long period of time to have in equal measure people who speak well of him and those who do not speak well of him. You'll find them in equal measure. Yes.
Franklin, can you tell, how was it though? I mean, I'm sure, because a lot of what we hear today, those are sentiments that, people are talking about, whether good or bad. Looking at the negative, of course, these are things that reached his ears. How did he handle that? Or how did he then, what was his expression about maybe some of the negative, news that would have reached his ears of what people were saying about him and his rule?
I think he has put it so well, succinctly, that you do not expect to be loved by all. Neither do you expect to be hated by all. So you expect positive and negative, and that is leadership. A leader who has got no opposition, I don't think would drive well, because it is the opposition that catalyzes you to improve on what you are doing, because they have pointed out something which you may not have seen.
And did you see that was the case?
Yes, that was the case.
Did he use that then to propel and do better?
Yeah, I would say so, especially when I think of Section 2A of the Constitution. The whole country was kind of is it on fire or in fire?
In a frenzy.
In a frenzy, if I can use that word. Yes, I think I like that one. In a frenzy. People agitating that this Section 2A should be obliterated, should be blacked out of our Constitution. You can remember Martin Shikuku, Kenneth Matiba, Charles Robia, and all those guys. Raila Odinga,
his father,
his brother Oburu, his father, yes,
his father
Jaramogi was there, and the other son Oburu. They were all there, clamoring for change in that part of the Constitution. On the other side, the diplomats, the diplomatic community was equally agitated over that issue. So here is Moi facing two people, the critics within and the critics without.
Right.
So he made up his mind one day and said, Bwana Kamodo, call ita watu yote governing council ya KANU yote into Kasarani.
He said, this is enough now.
This is enough. So then he said, bet.
Andika speech.
We chora. I said, man, chora nini mzee. Then he said, andika. Okay. So akaniambia aka dictate what he wants to be on that speech. Now, one issue was Section 2A out. Remove it. On his speech. And I'm writing it even before the KANU governing council
has met.
So when I was going with him into Kasarani, he was already clear in his mind, hii kitu itatoka. Right? So when we arrived at Kasarani, the small amphitheater, it was full.
Packed.
And
it was televised.
Yeah, it was packed. And you could see it all the way around.
Yeah.
And there we were sitting where Eric is sitting, because that is the way it was kind of stationed. Yeah, Eric is sitting where we were. And all this round were delegates from across the country. Now partitioned in there.
In the regions,
Yeah, in the regions.
Rift Valley, Pale,
Eastern Pale,
Western, Coast, Nairobi.
Sasa kamwambia Kamodo, anza mazungumzo.
Does Kamodo have the brief? Is he aware what's going to happen?
Ana habari. Ana habari. Ni mimi.
So the only two people who
knew.
Franklin Bet and Daniel Arap Moi.
Yes. Maybe a bit of Kiptonui. But there we were. So Nairobi was on this side, if you will remember. Nairobi was on this side, and the last one on this side was the coast, coast province. So Nairobi wanaanza kuamuka. Hii katiba lazima ikae vile ilivyo. Hatuwezi kusukuma na watu wengine alafu tubadilishe. Hiyo ni Nairobi. The same was reverberated across the country. Across this thing. There was only a bit of watermelon activity within the coast. Within the coast.
Who was the leader, of course, at that time? Was it
Ngala.
Sharif?
I think it was Sharif Nasir
and Noah Katana
Ngala. Yes. So it was a bit grayish out there. It was a bit watermelon. So, see, this man is sitting.
Yes.
And that took almost 2 hours.
Yes.
That talking.
Everybody,
and
they all said the same thing.
The same message.
In different words, same.
Yeah, same message. No change.
Yes.
So, Anagalia, he was now calling me from the base. That was his way of calling. I wish it was on TV.
He just do his hand like this. You know.
I know he's summoning me now. So I would come and he says, Mambo sawa sawa. He was asking me, is my speech there well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's well, I'm saying.
Are my words in the speech?
Yeah, I have said yes. Now, when he rose to speak, after all this, he prepared, he read I think it was almost about the 7th page on those cards, about the 7th page. And he knew it was about the 7th page. He knew it himself. Because he read on reaching the 6th page.
Paused.
He paused. This man remembers. He paused. And he now went into Kiswahili.
Ad-lib now.
He now went into Kiswahili. And what he was saying in a nutshell, you don't know what is going on around you. That's what he was telling the people. You don't know what is going on around you. Mimi nimefikiria sana. Na ninaona huko mbele. Remember Jaramogi said, Mo is like a giraffe.
Yes.
Anaona mbele.
Then he said, you don't know what I have seen. Na mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba tukienda vile mnasema tutakuwa na tabu mbele. Vile mimi ninaona. What was he doing? He was listening to these people agitating in the country.
Right.
He was saying, I am listening. He was listening to the diplomats and he was saying, I am listening. That is why he was saying, amujui ile iko mbele. So Moi was a listener. He was a person who never ignored any message. Maybe because he was a Kalenjin, because in Kalenjin we are told, don't ever ignore the word of a child. That is what we are told as Kalenjin.
I mean, listen to the least significant person.
Yes, listen.
Around you.
So what he was saying is that I have heard these people, and he wasn't telling them I have heard.
Right.
Neither was he telling the critics, I have heard you. He was only saying, there is something difficult coming in front of us. And then he went now back to his cards. And now he read. And now he read. And then he was reading that Section 2A must therefore be abolished. Remember, the rest of the speech was not read again.
Yeah, he was done with that.
He was done with that.
Yeah.
You know what happened? This same crowd rose up in jubilation.
Yeah.
Yes.
In celebration. Celebrating what
he had said.
What he had said. So coming to your question, that is it. He listened. He appreciated that critic, but may not tell the critic, I've appreciated what you are saying. But he would take into his decision-making process. Yeah.
Bwana Franklin, at some point, he apologized to the nation. He apologized. He made an apology.
Yes.
His final speech.
His final speech, yes.
He said he was sorry if he hurt anybody. Really, those who hurt him, he forgave. And those whom he hurt, also, he was asking for forgiveness. Of course, we've tried to dissect that. What did he mean? What, from where you sat and how you knew him and how you saw him work, what did it mean?
He meant it. That I can tell you without mincing words. He meant it. Forgive me if I have wronged you. I'm forgiving you
if you've wronged me.
If you have wronged me. He meant it. That is the Christian that Moi was. All over in the Bible, you know, there is the message of forgive each other. Forgive one another. I know my former president, President Jomo Kenyatta, said, forgive, but don't
forget.
But don't forget. But that may sound unchristian if you were to look at it per se. But Moi meant what he said when he said, I forgive you. He was simply cleaning himself. He was simply clearing himself. And I would urge the people of this country to really listen to him afresh on that particular statement. I know the media have been playing it. I want to urge the people of this country to take advantage of that message. That we don't take to heart and stay in the heart. I will tell you what he told me so many times. And that is why I am saying he meant it. He would say, Bet. He never called me Franklin. Bet. Usichukue hasira yako kwa moyo. Don't take your anger into heart, but into your lungs.
So you can breathe
it out.
So, and he was saying it in Kalenjin, of course. Yes. And it sounds good when it is said in Kalenjin.
It has deeper meaning.
It has deeper meaning. Yes. I kept on listening to that statement until I asked him, Zay, what is all this about? Then he now said what you guys have said in unison. If you have it in your lungs, the lungs moves out and it has got those pores. So it comes out. But if it goes to your heart, it never comes out. No. It stays there and it is difficult for it to come out.
It just circulates.
It just circulates inside.
Yes.
That's why I was saying earlier on, without naming any names, I get so tired.
Fatigued.
Fatigued, actually. When I hear somebody discussing Moi on the negative and doing so repeatedly, I ask myself, please do so when the man is here, that he may be able to respond, or for him to hear that you are nagging.
Let's go to a short break, but going to that break with those words the former president that said. These are the last words he said as president.
Nitaondoka kwa siasa ya moto mina kwa raia mwema, lakini wale wanaozingatia kuongoza, musiweke Kenya chini, musiweke msingi wa siasa zenu kwa chuki. Kama yuko mtu ametukana mimi na msamehe. Na kama yuko mtu ambaye nimesema chochote ambaye kimeumiza roho yake, unisamehe.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Done right.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Served as State House Comptroller between 1996 and 1998. Before that, he was a Deputy State House Comptroller. He's also told as well he worked there in State House under President Daniel Arap Moi for over 15 years. And of course, well, you wrote the speeches for him. You worked as a State House Comptroller. You were the accounting officer in State House. You dealt with the man on a daily basis. Was there a time when you looked at him and you thought, there's too much pressure and he's actually feeling that this pressure of leadership is a bit too much? Like you can just look at somebody and feel, this person is feeling despair. I want to give up. I'd like to just go home, look after my goats and cattle and just rest and deal with my grandchildren.
That's true.
Was there such a time?
Very little. He was first of all, he allowed humility to clothe him completely. The humble nature of him, I think, kept him. And then number two, his Christian values stood well for him. Every time there was a crisis, he would resort to, what does the Bible say? Mm-hmm. He would resort to the book of Proverbs, which has got a lot of teachings in terms of leadership and all that. So at no time did I see him thinking he was of giving up. Because he gives up for who? Because when you give up without preparation of who is going to look after the country, you would then be seen as a coward, as a bad leader. He wanted to just hold on the country. And you will remember, really, he held stability in this country very close to his hands, very close to his heart.
He was always talking about that.
Stability, love,
unity,
peace, and unity.
Right.
That's what the clarion call, which he kept on repeating and repeating and repeating. And he also allowed the Boniface Mugangas of this world to do the patriotic songs. And those songs kind of gravitated the country into the meaning of peace, love, and unity.
Do you think he stayed on the seat for too long?
I would say yes.
In retrospect.
In retrospect, yeah. Because you need, they say in Kalenjin, you need to leave talking when the words are still
hot.
Still sweet, not hot.
Sweet.
Leave when the party is still swinging.
So I think the agreement were 2 term of 10 years. To my mind, I think is good. It's optimum. It's good. It's also good for a person to retire like Moi did.
And Kibaki has
get to know the whole of Africa. A few of these presidents leave the office. Some of them are living in a coffin. Others are living, being forced out. But Moi left voluntarily. And he said, I will follow the constitution. But I think staying that long is equally, what would I say?
A stretch.
A stretch and fatiguing also, like you used the word fatigue. It fatigues the nation. Like if I was to be standing every morning here and looking at those people in that studio there, people will get tired of me. And they would want me to go away and maybe another person to come and stand where I'm standing.
Yep.
So I would agree that the decision to give a fixed term of
leadership
to 10 years is good. Is good. For even to retreat and also see how another one will look after the country. I was a member of parliament.
Right, yes.
And I think we tried to do as much in my constituency.
Yeah.
Towards the end, people were looking like they were tired of me. All right? And I said, I am not offering myself for candidature. 2013.
It was 2013, yes.
Then Raila said, if you are not offering yourself for candidature, come and manage the campaign. Now, it's after that now, people will open up and say, wow, we were tired of this guy, but I think he was doing better.
Right.
They can look back and see what you did.
What you did.
At that point, I mean, there's too much pressure just to criticize you and see everything that you're doing wrong.
Wrong. But when you move out, then they see another person doing.
You know, it's interesting you'd say that because immediately after President Moi left office, 2 to 3 years after that, President Moi was even more popular than when he was president.
When he was president.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like people looked and said, wait a moment. Why did we actually let this guy go? That is the nature of change, and that is the nature of human beings.
That's right.
Remember, the same crowd who welcomed those who are Christians, Christ, Palm Sunday, when he came into Jerusalem. Same. It wasn't a different crowd. Jerusalem didn't move and go to Lebanon. Same place, same geographical area.
40 days later.
Same crowd was saying, you know, this guy called Barnabas, who we know is a rioter, a terrorist, and a thief. Let this guy go and crucify this one. Same crowd.
That's a very good example, really. You remember he said himself, Moi. You are saying Moi must go. You remember that?
Yes.
Moi must go. You will be saying one time, Moi must come.
Can I ask you then, in relation to that, a lot of times we hold people to the judgment of others. How did he view his performance? Was he satisfied with what he did at the end of this all?
I'll tell you, every human being will always conclude, I am satisfied of what I have done. They will always not allocate to themselves a negative position.
Yeah.
They will always allocate to themselves,
I did my best.
I did my best. I gave it my best. And that is why he ended up by saying, if there is anything I have done against you, forgive me.
Right.
He was simply saying, I am human. I am not perfect. I am capable of making errors. I have my own shortfalls. But I also have my strengths. So, like I was telling somebody yesterday, if you keep on saying Moi did badly, you bring a scale, a weighing scale. Put the bad things on there and put the good things here.
Let's see which
way it will go. And I told him, for sure, the bad side will run down and the good side will run up. But the goodness is both are there, and that is human. Yeah, there is no leader whatsoever in Africa or in the world who is credited to be perfect. None.
I mean, take the example of even our own families. If you happen to have a family and children, there's a point in time when your children consider you the greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Your children,
yes,
whom you feed, you clothe, you've taken to school, consider you, the parent, to be a terrible person. They outgrow it. And usually it helps if they grow up and become adults and have their own children. They tend to come back and now start telling you, we really were very stupid. We didn't fully understand what you are trying to do. Because they are now faced with the situation you were going through. They now understand. So this is why our parent did this. Now, if you cannot find it within yourself to understand the circumstances that you found yourself in, no matter how adverse, and you come to a point of reconciliation, the person you're harming is yourself. That amount of bitterness, no matter how justified,
that's right.
If you don't resolve it, it'll harm you.
It will eat you up.
Yes. In fact, you'll be causing yourself even more harm than the harm that you keep saying was caused to you.
I'll even give you a personal example. When I went to Standard 1, you remember the Standard 1 of long ago?
The Standard 1 of long ago, people went barefooted.
Yes. Even without pants.
No, it was a long khaki shirt that went beyond your knees.
So it was acting as a shirt.
Yes.
It was everything.
In fact, it was a garment that was well ventilated. Yes.
I love that. Now, there is this particular one teacher.
Can I ask you, can you pause?
Okay.
Let's go to the top of the hour, take a look at traffic, and then you can come back and hear now this very interesting story. It's actually been built up as a very, very interesting story. In the studio is Franklin Bett, former State House Comptroller, served in the State House for many years, but as Comptroller for 2 years, 96 to 98. Of course, we are looking back at the years of former President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. The conversation is very interesting. There are very many comments that are also coming in on social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. One of them is saying, Franklin Bett has funny memories of Mzee Moi. Let him tell us something about the fimbo. Its meaning, how many were they? How many fimbos did Mzee have? And of course, you'll also tell us about this interesting story, personal experience. Good morning, 8 o'clock, right here on Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Kisumu. The road where it looks like the service lane, Muthaiga, is at a standstill. So you don't want to use that if you're looking for an option to get away quickly. Patience has to be employed on all major roads today. The Way Bridge on Mombasa Road, very poor visibility, and that is of course feeding off from Kitengela, where the fog is very, very low, even now when the sun is out. So that means people need to move a lot slower to make sure that you don't ram into anything. Likoni Road is jam-packed towards Enterprise Road, so that means that the spillover to Jogo Road is going to be quite something, trying to get into the city centre. At Langata Road, we have traffic all the way from Boma still. It is still bumper to bumper, and also means that some patience needs to be employed here as well. So everywhere you look, we're looking at trying to get into the city with some traffic, folks. You're going to have to be very, very patient this morning, as always. You'll get where you're going eventually. If you do find an alternate route apart from what we've talked about, let us know on Spice FM KE or give us a ring, 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's also Kenya's biggest conversation, and this hour and the last hour we were talking to Franklin Bett, looking inside President Daniel Arap Moi's State House. Before we went into the break, Bett, you were telling us about your days in Standard 1. C.T. Muga has actually now told us about the ventilated uniform.
Yes, I concur with him.
Yes.
I concur with him because that was the version at that time. Yeah. When I got into school, at this Cheborge Primary School, that's where I went to Standard 1 in Kericho County. This teacher was, if I can say, brutal. He was imparting knowledge with a lot of force. And if you were not able to understand, he would pinch you, and his nails were not like mine.
They were long.
They were long and strong. So he would pinch you normally on your cheek, and you would really see a mark.
You leave a mark.
Leave a mark on your
On black skin.
on a black skin. And we were all mad at him. We didn't like him. We thought he was overbearing on us as school children. Several years later, I asked myself, supposing this teacher did not do what he did on me, would I be what I am? And I was asking myself when I was now Minister for Roads, would I have become the Minister for Roads if that man did not do what he did? You know what I did? I bought an Heifer. I bought a Heifer. And got it on a pickup, got all my councillors, and a few of the community, I mean, a small section of the community where the school was. And we went to visit him in Nandi, because he migrated into Nandi. And when we reached him, he's now quite old, and he asked, "Why have you come?" I said, "I have come to say thank you for being my teacher." And he told me, "I thought I pinched you so many times. I thought you would not come again to me." I said, "That is what has made me what I am." And the whole crowd went wild, because it was now a crowd. He had his crowd and I had my crowd.
Yeah.
And he literally wept because of what I had done.
Appreciation is a good thing.
Appreciation is a good thing. So I was saying that situation where somebody is hard on you can be a benefit to you if you use it positively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about Fimbo.
Fimbo
ya Nyayo.
Yeah.
How many were they? Did he have like many? Like would he pick ini a Monday, ini a Sunday?
Sorry. Excuse me. First of all, a Fimbo is a symbol of leadership to every African king. If you look at all the African kings, name any country, they had a Fimbo. It may not be a baton the way Moi had that baton. It could be a
fly whisk,
a staff.
So it was the symbol of that leadership. And Moi chose the baton. As it were in Kiswahili, the rungu. But this was not a rungu to hurt. It was a rungu for peace. It was a rungu for development. It was a rungu for love. As it were really for peace, love, and unity. And of course, development is what is tucked in there. You have asked me whether they were one. Any comptroller who does not provide an alternative is not worth the salt. Really.
You must be prepared.
You must be prepared for an eventuality. Even in terms of motor vehicles, there must be a spare. So people were saying Moi Motorgate was long. It was comprising a spare, one or two.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the Fimbo. We had a spare just in case. I'll even tell you, I don't remember where it was, but I think it was somewhere in the Far East. We were crossing a ferry. And, or something, I can't remember, but it fell off. And we could not retrieve it.
Into the ocean?
Yes, it fell off and we could not retrieve it. One time, I don't know what happened, and it broke. You see? So we had to have a substitute, a replacement.
Immediate.
Instantly. So, I mean, these are things which can get...
wherever the
these are the
president
things which can
traveled,
get destroyed.
there was another Fimbo somewhere.
There was another Fimbo somewhere to replace.
Identical.
Identical, yes. Identical.
Because we never knew. I mean, you just see Moi with this thing.
Yes,
and you
but
assume that he has held,
I would argue that even the same with the vehicles, they were identical.
Yeah.
So you would think it's the same vehicle, but it is not.
Look at President Obama, or as it were, American presidents. That Air Force One, they are not one.
There are many ones.
There are many ones. There are many ones. They could be actually three flying side by side, and you are thinking this one is the security, this one is the security, but they are one. They are more than one all the time. They are more than one all the time. Yeah, because and eventually a situation can arise.
True.
And you don't want to stop. You want to continue.
Right. What happened to the Jogo? Was it true? Is it true that it was stolen?
I heard that story, but I never came to chasing after it so much because to me it didn't mean much. So I didn't.
Well, I mean, it's a symbol of the party, and this is the leader of the party. And Moi and Jogo had sort of become.
There were so many Jogos which were given to him.
I see.
There were so many.
Mementos.
Mementos. There were so many of those. So many of those mementos. There were so many in the house.
I see.
So I wouldn't have bothered if one was taken. Yeah. Just like today, I wouldn't mind if I find I got a couple of Bibles in my house. I wouldn't raise anger in me if I find one is not there. Because I'll tell myself, the person who has taken it
is benefiting.
Is benefiting.
Voila.
We also observed very many times, of course, during public meetings, people hardly ever refer to him as Moi. It's always Mzee, right? Baba Taifa. Was this out of fear? Was it out of
I think naturally.
Was it just?
I think it just came naturally. nobody gave a ruling that
never call him Moi in his presence.
Yeah, call him say no. I think it just came naturally. Just like I would, when I meet him, I would just say naturally Mzee. Yeah. Like yesterday when
I've been
we
calling
went
you
to
Mzee actually on this show. And
Yeah,
you ever
yeah.
call CT Mzee?
And I've not told you to call me Mzee. So I think it came naturally.
Right.
Yeah. Like yesterday when I was at the mortuary, Leaf Funeral Home, I found myself sitting, and then I looked up and I saw Minister Charles Keter standing.
Yeah.
I was a minister of old, but I'm no longer one.
Yeah.
I said, wow, this one is a minister. He can
He's a
sit down.
current minister.
He's a current minister.
Yeah.
Then I beckoned
You called him, yes.
I called him to come and take my
seat.
my chair. I was shocked. He simply said, I cannot sit on your chair seeing that gray hair.
Of course.
I want these two to listen to what you just said.
We have taken it under advisement, and things might change
Yeah,
in the
and,
next few days.
I felt so humbled. I felt so humbled.
Yeah.
But since I had already stood up,
Right.
there was a lady standing by, a women rep. I asked her, take
Sit.
this seat. Yeah.
She shamelessly.
I don't think shamelessly.
No. She was offered the seat.
I offered her the seat.
As was Keter.
No. There's now what you call chivalry.
Oh, no.
Where
This is
Shimei
clearly is not dead.
was being a
Chivalrous
mwana,
now,
a
right.
gentleman.
There is something I don't want us to leave without mentioning.
Yes.
His quest for peace in the African region. This was mainly informed by the sheer fact that in any war, the main sufferers are two, the children and the women. And he had a lot of love for children. That you know very well.
Yes.
So he would always work for peace. And that's why he allowed the Kenyan forces to go out there in the peacekeeping missions. Deep inside him was, I don't want to see children, I don't want to see mothers suffering. So he had that in mind all the time. But I think the trickiest of them all was dealing with President Museveni. You will remember he was here for most of his time when he was battling to get into Kampala.
He lived in Kenya.
He lived in Kenya. Even most of his ministers, those who were still there, they were here. He gave him security. He gave him residence and the upkeep.
Facilitated his stay.
Facilitated his stay. Now, because he wanted peace in Uganda, apart from the children and the women, he was also seeing the need for development. The upkeep of the people is what he was looking at. And he would sit in those meetings when we were negotiating Museveni and the Okellos, you remember? And the one attribute Moi had in his life was patience. Very patient man.
Yeah.
He would sit there and you see Okello on this side, Museveni on this side. There was another fellow from those sides of Jinja. He was an engineer, but a clever man. He would create
Tension and friction between
the two. And they would start insulting themselves. Then we would listen. And then he says, gentlemen, maybe we should adjourn so that for another 30 minutes. And then he would adjourn for 30 minutes. By that time, he would have gone on the side with Museveni, gone on the side with Okello, with that engineer, and they come back again a bit sober and contained, and they would continue. That we did until the end. What puzzled me, of course, was when we were the last meeting. I remember, because I was acting as the secretary for the meetings. The last meeting surprised me. Museveni requested permission to go back to Rwanda. You know, he was attacking from Rwanda. And I think he was so guile, actually. I think he was, to me, I think he looked very crafty, the way he did it. Because the next minute, if you remember, Museveni was being aired when he was overrunning Kampala.
Meaning when the discussions were going on,
he was already moving.
His activities never stopped.
Yes.
Never stopped.
Yes, he was negotiating while he was moving.
Yes. And we are saying ceasefire. And then he got into Rwanda. The next minute, I'm literally seeing him on TV.
In Kampala.
And that was the end of our negotiations on this side. Because he had taken over the place.
Yeah.
So such are some of those things which we went through.
Yeah.
And I remember the discussions between Afewerki of Eritrea and Meles
Zenawi
of Ethiopia. I was with them for a long time. And they were literally living in State House. And Moi viewed them as my sons. And he actually said so all the time. You, my sons. Why are you fighting? Why don't you come to an understanding? There's a lot of space in Ethiopia that can accommodate both of you. And that is how it came into now Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Yes.
But it saddened Moi actually. It kind of made him feel bad.
He didn't want to split.
When they started now fighting between the two, Zenawi and Afewerki. I even asked myself, because I stayed with them for months on end instead. I asked myself, how can Afewerki be fighting with Zenawi? And they were here as brother and brother.
Yeah.
But he went through all those.
More importantly, remember, one of the problems that Ethiopia, similar to Somalia, have are clan issues.
Yeah.
They are far, far more virulent and far more explosive than anything that Kenyans think they have experienced with when it comes to tribalism.
It's true.
Yes. And they hold those things, those grudges, generationally.
Yes. We even see in our small Somalia, northeastern province.
The
clan issues.
Clan issue is very strong.
Even in Maasai land, you wonder, clan issues. You find Wasingishu and Syria fighting. And they are all Maasai. These ones are all Somalis. So clan issue, like you said, is more little than the tribal part of it. So I wanted to mention that bit about Moi and his effort
to bring peace
but of course they were also seeing Kenya as stable, so they were picking a leaf out of Kenya. Let us be peaceful like Kenya. Nairobi is the hub of East Africa.
Yes.
And Moi loved it that way.
I'd like to just add what you're saying by giving the example of Yugoslavia. Joseph Broz Tito was considered by Western standards a dictator, but he held Yugoslavia together.
Yes.
Now, what happened when Tito stopped, when he ceased to be in power? That place disintegrated, and the sort of atrocities that we saw coming out of that particular region reverberate to date.
Yes.
To date. No, it didn't end in a year. To date, as we speak. Some of the people who were taken to The Hague for some of the most heinous crimes against humanity came from that area. So, understanding what we consider a dictatorship from a Western perspective tends to get it wrong.
This is where we go wrong.
Because an African concept of leadership and how we view our leaders and how we respond to our leaders, any Westerner would look at it and say, these people are under a dictatorship. And we may not necessarily share his view.
Would you then be agreeing what Kagame said, that Africa needs a benevolent dictator? Yeah.
That is a Western concept, but the idea is right.
It's not even a benevolent dictator.
No.
Africa needs a leader.
A leader, full stop. The benevolent aspect of it is how they understand these things.
Yes.
It's their excuse of it, because they also practice the same thing with their people.
Look at Trump.
Somebody else.
Look at Trump.
Benevolent dictator.
Yeah, benevolent dictator. Yeah.
That's what he is. Actually, Mr. Franklin Beth, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Of course, for giving us all these insights into the life of Mzee Moi's State House and how he ruled and what his thinking was. Asante sana. Of course, it was a very good thing that we end on that point. Peace, love and unity. And
that's right.
The efforts that he was making to bring peace, to ensure that there is peace in the country and bring peace in the region. Asante sana. When are you writing your book?
That is a question I've been asked by a couple of people.
Add me to that list.
I add you to that list. But let me leave as I underline two things. Forgive. Let us forgive one another as a country. Let us appreciate each other as a country. Let us respect each other as a country, as a people. I will end with what he kept telling me, President Moi, that which is also in the Bible. Ulimi yako inaweza kufunja nchi na ulimi yako inaweza kujenga nchi. Your tongue is critical. The book of Proverbs stresses that it's a little part of your body, but it is dangerous. So he kept on telling me. So I want to urge our leaders today, let us not make statements that would put the country, the security of the country, the development of the country into a state of jeopardy. Let us build the country by what we say. Let us say things that go into development. And more so, President Moi never entertained politics during funerals. I see funerals are just the bedrock of politics.
Oh, they're platforms.
They are platforms.
Yeah.
He never allowed politics in church. If you watch carefully, he attended church, came out of the church, maybe even a distance of 500 meters, 200 meters.
To address the people.
He never addressed the people from the pulpit. He never allowed himself to do that because of the holiness, the sanctity of that particular place.
Right.
So I want to urge our leaders today, let us respect institutions and let us say, in the way we used to be told in the public service, the need to know. The same can be said there, the need to say.
Right.
Speak only when you're required to.
When you are required
important.
to. And let us avoid these insults in public. Unakuta kijana mdogo anaanza kutukana mzee. Hata kama wewe hutaki huyo mzee, tafadhali patia yeye heshima kulingana na miaka yake. Hapo ndipo ninasema.
Thank you very much.
So let us mourn Moi with respect. Let us mourn Moi knowing what he did for this country. Let us speak out, emulate some of those good things. Just like as culture changes, we do not leave what is good in our culture. We retain it as we blend with other cultures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mzee Franklin Bett, former State House Controller, worked in State House for many years. After that, he got into politics. He was an MP. He was a minister, cabinet minister in the Kibaki administration. And of course, now he's a Mzee. When he speaks, these younger people, the younger MPs and politicians should listen. And you've ended up very well. We can't add any more. 23 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues after this. Let's take a look at the weather and then we go on.
The weather with Spice FM.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 18 degrees. We're looking at a high of 26 and a low of 14 today. And in Nakuru, 16 degrees and a sunny morning. A low of 14 and a high of 27 with showers expected later on in the day. In Eldoret at 14 degrees, it's sunny right now. Expect partly cloudy conditions later with a high of 23 and a low of 12. Standing strong at 27 degrees in Mombasa. It's partly cloudy with a high of 32 later on. Expect showers in Kisumu with a high of 27, currently with mostly cloudy conditions at 20 degrees. In Malindi, it's 27 degrees with a high of 31 and rain showers expected later. Rounding things out in Nyeri at 17 degrees, it's going to rain later on with a high of 25 and a low of 14.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The situation room continues. The conversation continues, of course, in our social media platforms, our digital platforms, www.spicefm.co.ke. On Facebook, where we are live streaming Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube. And also, of course, remember we are countrywide, 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Mombasa, 187.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0, Eldoret, 96.7, Malindi, 97.7, and Nyeri, 90.9. And now the people of Nyeri, you'll remember this man who's our next guest. He was your MP for quite a number of years. This is Wanyere Kihoro. Asante sana for joining us. Good morning and karibu.
Asante sana kuniita hapa. Nizungumza Kiingereza ama Kiswahili? Mimi nazungumza lugha yote, hata ukitaka Kikuyu pia.
Yote lakini Kizungu.
Start the greeting in Kikuyu, go on to Kiswahili, and then mix it with English.
Show us your prowess.
Thank you. Kama ndamgaidia mno, habari ya asubuhi, and then good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Of course, Wanyere Kihoro is one of those leaders who, during the clamor for multipartyism, he was right there at the front of that. And when we got into multi-party elections, multi-party democracy, he was among those who played a role in it. Just for those who may not remember, just give us your background, of course, from the moment you got into parliament, going backwards to the moment you wanted to have an opportunity to get into parliament.
Yeah, I became a member of parliament for Nyeri Town in 1997, the last millennium. And before that, I was in exile for a period of 6 years, 7 years. And I was in London, recognized by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees as a refugee. Before that, I was a Ugandan citizen for a period of 2 years. My name was Fred Muhorozi from Shigezi in Uganda in 1990 and 1989. Before that, I was a detainee in Naivasha for a period of 3 years, and I graduated with honors as 3 years longest standing graduate of University of Naivasha. And before that, I was actually a graduate of Nyayo Process Chambers. I stayed there for 90 days, and it's only one Mukarunganga, Mirugi Kariuki, who beat my record.
You've got a checkered history here, right? You know, Mr. Muharuzi.
I've come a long way.
So what do they call you in London? No, of course, in Uganda you are Muharuzi. Of course, there you are recognized properly as a refugee.
Yeah, I was Fred Muharuzi in Uganda, and I arrived on a code February morning, London, 8th of February 1991, from Kampala, Addis Ababa, London Heathrow. Mm-hmm. And I had that Ugandan passport for a period of about 2 years. Before then, I got a UN travel document. Mm-hmm. And I can say that in London, I told every English person, he has to learn how to mention my name.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to have it the other short way of Joe or Dan or friend.
I love it.
And they all learned how to call one Nyeri.
Kihoro.
And they learned, and it is good that I still remember that as one of my memories. Yeah.
I love it. I must say I love it.
What was the first time that you were picked up for detention?
I was picked from Mombasa. I used to live in Shangamo Estate. And that is in 1986. My wife had actually just arrived that morning by train from Nairobi. And from Nairobi, she had come from Kampala. I had a long connection with Uganda because it's good. I had a bit of what you are talking to Mr. Franklin Bett about 1985 Uganda. And that I remember very well because also for 7 years he was in Nairobi and he was also in London. Many of his ministers who actually got into power on the 26th of January, 1986, are people I knew. Museveni, I've met him. Unfortunately, I didn't meet Moi in his life. But I met Museveni. I met Mandela. I met Nyeri. But these African Kenyan leaders, there is an issue. I have an issue with them.
Why?
They want to be too simple. too simple in that it's like you have to bow. And they don't want you to have an agenda for your country. They want you like to abandon what you believe in so that you can get to them. And mainly what they'll give you is an opportunity to get a job. They give you a job. You said you're a good boy. But when we come to Kenya, I don't want to be a good boy. I want to be a difficult boy, like in a way, Jaramogi taught me very many things. By the way, I read Not Yet Uhuru in Kenya, 1967. And I congratulate Jaramogi for writing such a book in 1967. Just look at what quantity of history today is being lost because our people cannot write like Jaramogi. So there was something great about him. When he met me in London in 1982, he told me, Nyeri, I know you are PG, you are prison graduate.
That's what you guys used to call each other.
And that is an older man. He never drank water from Shania. It's good you talked about Nyeri and that river Shania that drowns people when it is in flood. But you can see we are people who can be very, very friendly to one another. Jaramogi will come to London and talk about being independent in Kenya, in Africa, a friend of Nkrumah, a friend of Mandela. When Mandela came to Kenya, 1981, he slept at the airport. He couldn't even come on the Uhuru Highway. He said, no, because I think Kenya, Kimathi, there are people I know. There are people who inspired me to fight for independence and liberation of South Africa. Why is the wife of Kimathi? And then when you don't answer him, you say, next time when I come to Nairobi, I will sleep.
Somewhere.
And you sleep on the aircraft, which is not good. So that is why I'm saying that we want to have a better country. It's good Moi has come and gone, 96 years, and God bless him.
Lived a full life.
Yes, lived. And now I'm asking these young people, look, our young people who are now sometimes dying at 25, 26. They are not even 25% of the age of Moi, are still around. And that is something that our country has to think about. How do we empower, how do we give opportunity to younger people so that they have a vision? Because now when I find that I cannot meet them in the bar, abandoned child and wife, and even himself, he has abandoned himself. If you look at him closely, you can see this is not a man who is his own man. He has abandoned himself.
But Nyeri, something that, while I've been sitting and listening to you, I understand your history, I've read about it, and I'm actually delighted to meet you.
Thank you.
How do you manage to speak sane, stay sane, look sane, and even have a sense of humor about the suffering that you underwent?
It's an effort.
Answer that question when you come out of the short break. Let's do it. Let's go into a short break, taking a look at traffic, and then we come back and have this conversation. Wanyere Kihoro, former Nyeri Town MP and also a former political detainee, is in the studio with us. We're looking back, of course, at leadership over the years, and he's gone into something, of course, we'll also look at what words of advice he'll have for the current crop of leadership and what they need to do in terms of thinking about Kenya, what Kenya needs. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 27 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, Thika Superhighway southbound, you can now use the service lanes because those have opened up and it will actually make it a little bit easier for you as you're trying to get into the city centre. Gong Road, though, where we had problems earlier, is looking a little better now. There was heavy fog for some reason, where it's shining where you might see it on Mombasa Road. There was heavy fog between Kitengela and Mlolongo this morning. It is now starting to dissipate, so that, of course, makes traffic a little bit easier. The Mombasa Road traffic, of course, we had quite a number more lanes than we normally do, and so that affects everything. Still smack in the middle of traffic hour. Let's see how that opens up in a short while. But coming off of Thika Road is a little bit better now. Coming out of Westlands, there we didn't have much of an issue as you get into the University of Nairobi roundabout. And then being able to traverse the city is now a lot easier than it was about an hour ago. But we still have some trouble spots, namely Langata Road, Gong Road, and Mombasa Road. Let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods. If you find where you might be stuck, we'll let you know what an alternative is. Or if you do find an alternative that others can use, give us a shout on Twitter on SpiceFMKE or give us a call 0719 012 600.
breathing life into the 90s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You had a very interesting question that you were asking for my MP.
Yes, and I think he was ready to answer because he understood what I was asking. Yes.
Keeping sane?
Yes, talking sane, even having a sense of humor about, I'm not even referring to it as incarceration, a great deal of suffering, because when someone is incarcerated, his family also suffers. So, and yet, you are actually looking at this whole thing in a very balanced way. I'm asking, how do you do it?
It's very difficult to keep on the street and the narrow. And that is why it is in the Bible. If anybody could be able to do that, then even Jesus Christ wouldn't have come and told us about keeping on the street and the narrow, because it would have been very easy to get to heaven. You see, in this country, it has got a very corrupting environment. A very corrupting environment because of what is called money. And money has made very straight people very bent, very unstrict. And it's because, like, now I come to this studio, and then I find the first newspaper I get here is about win against the coffee theft. Now, which farmer would steal from the other farmer coffee?
Why would they? And they have their own coffee.
They got their own coffee. Why would they want to steal it? So it's being stolen by people in Nairobi with the warehouses. And when they steal it, they go and sell it to the Chinese, they go and sell it to the Swiss, they go and sell it to the Americans, and they get dollars. What good is that money when you have stolen it from some of the poorest people in this country? Look at milk. Why should you, in this studio, when you take tea this morning, be buying that milk at half a liter, 55 shillings, and the farmer is only getting maybe 7 shillings, because a liter, one lady in Mukurweini, I don't come from Mukurweini myself, and I've not been sent here by the people from Mukurweini to speak. But I know the former MP, one Muhika Mutai.
Yes.
And one lady with one cow with only maybe 5 liters of milk. The other day she was given 18 shillings per liter. She has nothing else. And you dare give her 18 shillings? And when you bring that milk to the city, you sell it for 120, 1 liter, and you give her 18 for that liter? We don't need a colonialist to exploit us.
No.
It's local exploitation.
We're doing a good job ourselves.
So to answer that question is, the best things and the most important things in your life are the ones you teach yourself. The ones you tell yourself, never again. I never go home to my wife at 11 p.m. at night or 1 a.m. in the morning. You see, my children want to see me. My wife wants to see me. When my wife was unwell at the Nairobi hospital, and she was in Nairobi hospital for a period of 4 years, I saw her every day. 4 years times 365 days, multiply how many times I saw her. Sometimes 2 times, because if a friend comes to me and tells me, I want to go and see where your wife is, I don't want that person to go and get lost in Nairobi hospital.
You take them.
I take them. So it could be sometimes 2 days, 2 times in a day. And I did it. One thing I did when my wife went into hospital, I stopped drinking. I used to be a good drinker also.
A good one.
A good drinker.
A good one would go home at 1 p.m. in the morning. 1 a.m. in the morning. But I stopped because I didn't want... When my wife was alive, she will not tell me, Nyeri, don't drink. She'll be happy. She's fine. She knew I'm going to drink even responsibly. But when she fell sick, I stopped drinking. I did not want to go to hospital. And she would, because she could smell things, she might not be able to talk. But she will
would
smell. And I didn't want her to smell beer. For a period of 4 years, when you are not drinking, it means you have stopped drinking.
You basically
Well,
have stopped
absolutely.
drinking.
Yeah, so that is a decision I never made consciously, but the force of
Circumstances made you.
are the ones that made me. So I'm saying in this country, very corrupting, a few people with a lot of money, a lot of it, they can't tell you I'm a big farmer, I'm a great Delamere in this country, I'm not Lord Ko. Lord Ko had the biggest farm in Laikipia.
Yes.
Lord Ko. These people have come into using money, and unfortunately, a lot of that money has damaged them. They're not going to live like Moi, 96, because Moi also, walikuwa nakula mtungo, na uji, na mahindi.
Yes.
How did you
na mboga ya kienyeji.
Na mboga ya kienyeji ile,
Yes, na uji.
na ile inaitwa na masaka.
I want to ask you, I mean, of course, you talked about incarceration over time. What did you feel about this country? I mean, obviously now you have sentiment about the country and the way it is going now. What did you feel about the country when Mzee Moi was president?
Yeah, President Moi was president for a period of 24 years. I just left the University of Nairobi, and that was in 1978. And before that, when very early, I was also involved in the JM affair. JM had been killed, taken from a Nairobi street, Hilton, and then 1 week later found on Gong Avenue, Haina Avenue.
Ngong.
Now that happened, and it's like I came in at the wrong time of history. Because I've seen also some people who are very lucky, they come into public affairs on the right side of history.
Yeah.
And then you start wondering. Someone like Boris Johnson, one of the biggest majority in a British election, taking up a majority of nearly 90 seats, what has he done for Britain? Who knew him more than 6 months ago when he succeeded Theresa May? And that's why I told even the Englishman, when I went there, don't call me friend. Yeah, call me Nyeri. And if you don't know how to pronounce it, I'm going to teach you.
You learn it.
And you learn it.
How are you feeling when you were incarcerated? What was it that was going through your mind?
Now, in Nyeri House, I had a lot of time, nearly 3 months, to reflect. Because I told you my wife had come from Kampala, Nairobi, Mombasa, arrived that morning at Shangamwe, arrived that evening I was arrested. And my thinking when I was taken from Shimolatewa, then Shangamwe, Mtito Day on a Saturday, arrived in Langata police station. Saturday morning, I was taken to Nyeri House. A period of 3 months, I lived in Nyeri House in the basement. And it's like I was half dead. I was a zombie. For 24 days, I didn't have any food. People wonder, how did I survive 24 days in water, naked, not sleeping? How do you sleep on water? Become an amphibian. How do you live like an amphibian?
Right.
You developed gills.
I don't have gills. I can't breathe. My legs became corroded.
Right.
But I had a lot of time to think and reflect, because myself in 1986 up to... I arrived in Nyeri House at the end of July. I left in October. I was detained on the 10th of October at Philip Kilonzo at the police headquarters. And one of the things that I thought about in Nyeri House is, this is not new. This is not done for Wanyiri Kihoro. This is not a building built for him. There must have been other people who must have passed through here.
Yeah.
And did they experience what I'm going through now?
They must.
And I don't believe that there can be such bestiality in the life of a human being that he can subject you to these kind of conditions. When they told me you're undressed and then I'm beaten up numb and then I'm taken there and put in water up to my ankles, that is how high the water is coming up. It is sealed at the door and you live there. I thought they are coming for me this evening. They can't allow me to die here.
Right.
They didn't come.
Following
Another day. It went on for 10 days. At that time, I think somebody must have been coming through the spy hole. Look at the door. Is this character dead or not dead? And eventually, when I came out and I'm given coffee, a lady came and gave me coffee. I had to soften me, soften the man. But eventually, what they wanted is to know something about Gogi Wathiongo, Michelle Mugo, what did you talk to them about Kenya? When we were in London in 1982 after the coup, I didn't have anything to do with the coup. I wasn't interested in a government by force. I've always been more of a persuasive person. So I had the time for a period of nearly 3 months in your house.
To reflect
And ask, this building is not built for me. How come that I've been brought here? What am I supposed to do so that I can be a good boy? Then I remembered all those other people who had gone through Kenyatta, early Moi detentions. And then the other also people called the Mau Mau, Mad Island, Sayusi Island on Lake Victoria, Mad Island on Lamu, Manyani, come up at the river, go all the way up to Turkana.
Go up to Kapenguria.
Up to Kapenguria, Kenyatta was there, but when he came, he also detained other people. From Jaramogi to Oneko.
Go up to Garbatula.
To Garbatula, you see.
So many people had actually gone through this same experience as you are going through.
And I realized that it is more of an ideological detention. They want me to change. If I had come out of detention in praise of the former president and say, great man, he has corrected the incorrigible, then I could have been, but I couldn't change also. Because I changed, and then that is part of the answer to your question.
Yes.
How do you stay on the straight and the narrow?
Okay. Who do you become when you change?
Who do I? That is the point. Whom do I become? Whom do you want me to become so that I can change? And they have no answer to that question. What do you want me to become? Do you want just to become subservient so that I can eat and drink and sleep in some comfort? There is no comfort in sleep that is acquired that way. You can't eat food and feel better. All that is negative.
We'll talk about now, of course, the years after all this detention, after we got into multi-party elections, multi-party democracy, and you participated in your first election, of course, in 97, you won.
Yes.
So we'll talk about your stint in leadership and what you see and what you saw then and what you observed about the country. This is a situation on Kenya's biggest conversation. Nyeri Kihoro, former Nyeri Town MP and a political detainee, in the studio. Good morning, 13 minutes to 9.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So, when you got to Parliament in 1997,
yes,
after having campaigned, what was it what made you want to get into Parliament in the first place?
Somebody who had an interest in public affairs for a long time, and in a way, sometimes I wonder, why did they hang the Kenyan flag on Mount Kenya? Because when I was a very young boy, I'm told, just wait at midnight. Kisoi Munyao is going to hang the Kenyan flag on Mount Kenya, top, 17,058 feet. So when I saw it that morning, that night at midnight, whether I could see it or not, on my mind, I believe I saw the Kenyan flag
being hoisted on Mount
Kenya. And that is, I think, the bee that bit me. That these are people, firstly, a country has become independent from the British, and now this Nyeri Kihoro, you have seen Kisoi Munyao hang the Kenyan flag on Mount Kenya, and why then change? How pretend that I don't know? So I continue to know, and now as Member of Parliament, a period of 5 years only. And when I come in your studio, I find you have got a story here about win against the coffee theft. One of the things that took me out of Parliament after 5 years only is my fight for the coffee farmer. The coffee farmer. For me, it is intolerable to be an MP, to be a governor, to be a leader who is not interested in the economic well-being of your people. It's about
the people.
You can even leave the machines to talk. But what is important is, when I became MP, we fought to see that there were more than $500 million shillings debt owed by coffee farmers. And when you have debt, that's the surest way of dying. when you are alive. So firstly, liquidate the debt. Even the Kenyan government at that time, we went to a big conference 2000 in Mombasa to look at what can we do about Kenyan debt. We don't want our people just to be carrying a debt about paying money, paying debt owed to foreign, the treasury bill, judo day. They came up with all these ideas about how to limit, how to reduce the burden of debt in this country.
Yeah.
Myself, in Nyeri, reduce the debt of the coffee farmer so that they can have some income. And eventually, that is what will have to be done. Unfortunately, the Kenyan debt ratio has gone up. 200,000, that is what you are worth in terms of debt. And my dear lady, that is what you might have to pay also, whether you like it or not. 20,000.
Per person.
Yeah, if you look at the population, I'm told somebody had that the Kenyan population is 47. Divide the debt of 6.5 trillion with the population of 47 million, then you'll know how much debt you are carrying. And most likely you might even carry more, because I'm telling you, maybe 60% of the Kenyan population is not paying tax.
Yeah.
There are people who are not working. There are people, there are children under 18. So if you look at all that population that is not actually working, cannot produce because they are too young, your debt ratio might go up to 600,000.
Maybe more.
Even more. You have to pay more.
So your clamor in those 5 years as an MP was, first of all, reduce the debt for the coffee farmer.
Indeed.
And you say that you got some success there.
We got some success because also when President Kibaki came to power 2002, 2003 and 4, he worked on reduction. He actually paid all these debts the government paid. They had a motion in Parliament in the year 2000 on the payment of that coffee debt. And it was approved by Parliament.
Yep.
So President Kibaki, when he came to power, he actually worked on that. And that was very good for him because in many ways he is the lead economist of this country at that time, from beginning from independence. And also he had more economic thinking when he became also president.
So why did the people of Nyeri town not vote you back into Parliament?
Yeah, that is a problem. And it started in Nyeri and now it has spread across the country, where you elect a member of Parliament for only one term. And that is part of the tragedy in this country, where it's like becoming a member of Parliament, become a cash cow. And for me...
It's about handouts.
To be told that I become an MP and my job is to give money out. I had my own bursary fund. In many ways, the other day when I was in Nyeri, I was saying, do you know what? When I was member of Parliament in Nyeri town, I'm the one who started the bursary fund in Nyeri town. It has now spread across Kenya. I'm the person who removed all the barriers that had been put by the county government in Nyeri. And when they were removed in Nyeri, they were removed in Webuye, and they were removed in Wajir. I'm the person who fought for the coffee farmer in Nyeri, and that matter went to Meru, and it went across the country. Kibaki will not do it for Nyeri, you do it for the country.
For the country.
So these are good ideas, but now I became unelectable. I became
because
a target.
You're not giving out a handout.
So I'm not giving a handout.
Would you say that the cartels who have been pointed at or to with regards to the ills of the coffee sector also didn't want you back?
They ganged against me. They ganged against me. They don't want to see me. They're saying, are people not really being based in research? They'll be told, the person, mtu ambaye anaharibu kahawa hapa ni Wanyeri. Wanyeri ni anaharibu kahawa yanyu, ungekuwa na pesa nyingi. Kwa hivyo juu ya kupata pesa kwa kahawa yenu ni kumtoa. Unaona? So that is the tragedy about a country when they have a committed person, because myself never saw leadership as money. You can hear that I started my own bursary fund in Nyeri town. 5 million shillings I paid my own money. Ask everybody in Nyeri, they will tell you, that is what he did. I started my own CDF with my own money. I bought land to build a bridge. And now I know you come up with a building bridge initiative. But that one is another one. That building bridges, I was in the no campaign. But now what is new?
You were in the no campaign.
I was in the no campaign.
When?
In
2005 or
2000
2010?
2010.
So you do not want this constitution that we have today?
We did not want the constitution with so many burdens. We did not want the constitution with such huge government. We did not want a constitution that will create a presidency and a governorship in 48 of the Kenyan territories. Mm-hmm. They are too big, they are too many, they are too big. A governor, like the governor of Kenya.
Too burdensome.
A president, only one president, but then he can retire and then you have 47 competing. Eventually, you see, what has happened in this country is arguments, political arguments. Before things happen, that is what you want to have. You want to have a good argument like, why do you want this constitution with such a huge government that you're going to spend nearly 60% of your whole revenue servicing the current expedition?
Yeah.
What is it for? Tulijaribu hiyo tukaambiwa tena Wanyeri hakuna kitu nakubali. Sasa wanatuambia nini habari ya BBI? Na uliza ni wale tu waliharibu, ni wao wanatuambia sasa tena tukubali BBI. Hata hawataki kuniona sasa tena kwa sababu nawauliza, si mlisema 10 years ago ya kwamba ni mzuri, tena mnatuambia tena si mzuri. You cannot be the same doctor. Huwezi kujitibu nini?
So what would you rather see then?
I still believe there are very fundamental flaws in the constitution. Myself, I've never been opposed to having a prime minister in this country because I also having a prime minister, somebody I can kick on the backside, which is not bad. Can be kicked out in parliament. When I remember President Kenyatta becoming president in this country in 1964, 63, he was prime minister. All the powers of the prime minister were merged into the presidency. All the powers of the governor general, they are merged by then Charles Jonjo, the attorney general, into one office. And that is what happened. Too strong a presidency. And now when I find even the people is talking about an imperial presidency in Kenya, what empire do you have so that you can talk about an imperial presidency? Unajua nini? Upenda sana kujimasaji sana. Ngoja umasajiwe na mtu mwingine badala ya kujimasaji wewe mwenyewe. Kwa sababu empire, we can talk about an imperial presidency in America. They have Philippines, they have got all the Pacific. You can talk about that. Or even have a president who just talks and calls shots. Now in this country, we have created a monster. That is what I'm saying. We still need to relook at the constitution. Maybe not this particular one that has got a very personal agenda by certain people. A very personal agenda. But in terms of the country, there's need to look at this constitution. Because myself, I would want reduced powers on the presidency. I would want an office of prime minister. And I also want the independence. I'm the chairman of the independence in this country. And I also want them to be part of government. And when I look at Kenya 2022, when you're going to have a government where there might be not a single party that has got a majority, and the independents might come in to weigh in on the balance, then it's not going to be, ours can only be a very informed decision about whom to support. So it's something that we would want to be considered by the people of this country in terms of reducing the powers on the presidency, making the presidency accountable, reducing the national debt, even the power of parliament to borrow. There should be a law. I know they pass a law there that is almost routine. When you have got a majority in parliament, you want to be a good boy.
There should be a law to govern this.
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much for coming in. Wanyeri Kihoro is a former Nyeri Town MP. He's also one of those many political detainees in the years gone by. Of course, he was on KTN News, and then he stopped by into the Spice FM studios. You've given us a bit of insights, and of course your experiences in those years, life in detention, life in exile, life as a recognized refugee, life coming back and taking on a mantle of leadership, being a member of parliament, going into the National Assembly, trying to see how Kenya can become a better country. And I'd like to thank you as well for all your contribution to nation building.
I'm very grateful to be invited this morning. Yes, I'd come from another program. I would also want to greet my friends with whom I spent time in detention, someone like Koigi Wamwere or Jeru Katangu, And tena pole kwa wale watoto ambao wameaga huko Kakamega. Kweli Moi amekufa akiwa miaka 96 na mimi usikia ushungu sana nikiona watoto wakiwa miaka 13, 14 ndio wanakufa tena kwa wingi hivyo. Napatia wazazi wao pole sana. Na wale wako hospitali wague pole.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
This is the Situation Room. It's 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic.
4.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
All right, things looking a little better. Wherever it is that you look, Mombasa Road is looking slightly better. We still have the foggy situation. For some reason today, there's poor visibility on Mombasa Road today. This is definitely affecting traffic. On Ngong Road, it's looking a little better, of course, trying to get to the city, to the T-Mall roundabout. As you then enter into the city centre, it's not so bad either. Coming off of Thika Road and Wayaki Way as well, where all things converge in the city centre and then go off thereafter, it also is not so bad. Officially at the end of traffic hours, so things are moving a little bit smoother. Unless you hit somewhere where you can't really get through, do let us know and we'll try to keep you moving. Spice FM KE, give us a shout on Twitter or give us a call 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Broadcasting on 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We live stream the show every morning on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Now let's look at what's happening beyond our borders, right? So we know today is Wednesday. Later tonight, the Senate of the United States of America is going to be making a decision. But also we know that the previous night, the President of the United States of America made some speech, C.T. Muga.
Well, it's called the State of the Union Address. And it talks about the achievements of the nation. It talks about what the nation needs to do. Essentially, as we speak today, this is where the USA is in terms of our development, in terms of our economy, in terms of our well-being, in terms of our social standing, in terms of our foreign policies, our trade policies, the benefits to the American people, the things we need to do. But what characterizes today's State of the Union address is the number of things that the American president focused on in terms of what has been done. It was, we've done this, and almost every other statement was punctuated by, never in the history of the U.S. have we seen such progress. Never in the history of the U.S. has this ever happened. It went on and on and on and on and on. And what is interesting about the modern world and the digital world and the communication world we live in, no sooner have those statements been made than you will find a comeback. The Washington Post was summarizing them and coming back with not a contradiction, but let me say a correction. But what is of interest, this is against the backdrop of an impeachment that by all accounts seems like it will not go down. That because of the numerical superiority that the Republicans have in the Senate, it is not likely that President I was about to say Obama. I was about to say Obama. Then I realized Obama was the other guy. Trump,
This is the other guy.
This is the other guy. Will be impeached. Now, the word impeachment becomes interesting in this country because we've just had a situation where we have a governor who was impeached, went to the Senate, which essentially was a court hearing. And in that court hearing, he was found guilty. And so, in our case in this country, the governor of Kiambu was found guilty. Now, when you look at the effects that, or the consequences that bring about one being impeached, you have to ask yourself, was it really justified? It sounds like a simple question, but it has to be asked, because if it's to do with mismanaging the country, mismanaging the resources at your disposal, or doing things that you ought not to do with that office, if it is this country, then one could argue that there are very many people in high office within this country who are going to face either court cases, or if they are governors, they are going to face impeachment. Now, whether they'll be found guilty, now that is what we wait to see. But what is certain is that this State of the Union address that was being given by the President of the U.S., which was around 5:30 a.m. our time, it was a statement that addressed itself to a specific group of people, blue-collared jobs, people who take up these jobs. It was specific to a crowd, and it was specific to bolstering the idea that his presidency has surpassed any other presidency that this particular country has had. Now, reality check. Is it really possible for any one president to achieve in 3 years what other presidents prior to him could not achieve in 8 years, and others who even succeeded them could not achieve in a similar time? But more importantly, once the community that you're addressing have received the message and they have lapped it up, reality will set in. It always does. All these things that have been said to have worked, whether it is the country being more accommodating, understanding, being all-inclusive, growing employment to 7 million, whatever the case is, the evidence will be borne out by the numbers. And from where I sit, and from what I've seen in the Washington Post, those numbers don't bear out.
This, of course, the Washington Post and the CNN and the like are, of course, going to look for the biggest mistakes and all anything that they can poke holes on, right? What is Fox News saying?
I haven't looked at Fox News.
It shows your bias.
No, it shows I'm limited.
Oh, good grief.
By choice.
Not biased.
Because just listening to you here, CT.
That is what came out. That is what came out.
Just listening to how you've put forth this argument is that, first of all, is it possible for this one man to do what previous presidents have not been able to achieve?
Yes.
Is it possible for him to have done this?
Yes.
And it's like saying he's the least capable of doing
I'm
what others are more
I'm actually
capable
questioning the rosy picture he's painting.
All presidents come and paint rosy pictures. There is no president who
not
comes
like
to the State
not
of
like
the
this.
Union.
But we have
Not
to take
like
into
this.
consideration that he's
Not like
making
this. Not like this.
these pronouncements, or at least giving room to all of these achievements on the eve of his would-be, conviction or acquittal. And of course, I mean, we saw this during the Merry Christmas speech that he gave in December, and we saw he started out. But the way in which he did this last night, and the way in which he glorified a lot of these projects, which of course the other side would say, okay, that's good. A lot of them may have been started by mouth, but in terms of having been completed, we are not actually at completion stage. But we have to also take into consideration the fact that this is being made on the eve of the decision, right? So it seems to me like a last attempt to get people to actually see that
to rally behind him.
Absolutely.
Also, remember, this State of the Union, just like other presidents before him have done, they look at it. This is a State of the Union in the year of an election.
And it's a campaign. Opportunity, of course.
It's a way of launching your campaign on a national platform.
Of course.
State of the Union address is televised across the country. You are getting this as the president who is a candidate in an election that's taking place later in the year. So, of course, you're going to use this as an opportunity to show this is what we've done. We have done very well. We've done this and the other. You are going to gloss everything that you've done and make it look like, you have achieved what is completely insurmountable by any other means. But for your presidency, this is a campaign speech, if you look at it. And if you just look at it, plainly, that's what it is. And any other president, even those before him, Obama did the same. Bush did the same. Clinton did the same. Bush Sr. did the same. Reagan did the same. Carter, same. that State of the Union.
Actually,
that moment when you get a national platform, you give yourself the best shot.
The glorification of achievements that with every other statement is punctuated, never in the history of America, that I've never heard before. Every other statement, it is like it has surpassed everything that any president in the U.S. has ever done. That particular punctuation I have never come across before.
True.
And that's why I'm saying...
Choice of words,
I have to question how possible that is. And that's what I'm questioning. Now, if someone has an understanding of this that contradicts mine completely and says that, in fact, indeed, the numbers actually show that everything he's saying is true, that would be a welcome contribution to the debate. But I am saying it is not possible.
It's not possible that we see never in the history of the United States, such having been done or such having been replicated. And I think that, of course, he was thrown into the whole passion of his speech. And of course, yes, you're looking at an election year. You're looking at the day before a possible conviction. You're looking at so many factors that influence the way in which you would have spoken. Unfortunately, then when it comes to the development of America, never have we seen America then been great to the point where it's been great again. The provision of so many more jobs for Americans. Of course, not looking at employment at zero levels, looking at highly reduced. Never have you seen any other president do so in 3 years. Of course, it's not the case. And it's the picture that is being painted, but it is not a true reflection of reality. It is not a mirror of what is actually happening on the ground. Of course, when you have a divided house, then you have the other side of the house saying, well, actually, no, this is not the case. It could be that fingers are being pointed and saying, yes, well, we've not seen this happen. But in reality, it is not the case that collectively, never before have you seen such things being done? No.
When else have you seen? Sorry. Pick one and tell me when else it was seen. Pick something from the Washington Post. What is it that they were saying? So when he says that we have not done this before.
An example is he says the American comeback, as he calls it, that we have 7 million people out of food stamps, meaning there were 7 million. We
had more than 7 million people on getting food stamps, and now 7 million in just 4 years are out of food stamps.
That's what he's saying. He's actually saying he removed 7 million out of food stamps.
Yes.
But the reality, according to what I'm seeing, is 4.2 million, not 7, since 2017. That is the comeback. They're saying, no, the number is high. What he has done is there are 4.2 who have been removed, not 7.
Okay.
There is a deficit of 2.8.
This is in whose count?
Oh, no, meaning that it is being said.
Whose count? Yes.
But I've given you my source already.
Who?
I've given you my source.
Yeah, who is Washington Post quoting?
Washington Post did not quote any specific source. They were saying that if you look at the numbers, these are statistics that are available.
They did their own research.
So by their own count.
Let me respond. The national government has data on this information, and they are relying on the data that the government itself has, because this is public knowledge. It is not something that is secretive.
Is the Washington Post quoting specifically?
All right, why don't you give me information to the contrary that you clearly seem to have?
The president has said this is what they've done. So if anybody is coming to argue against that, I'd expect them to say, no. According to data from, this is 4.2.
Have I not?
The Washington Post is saying, actually, it's 4.2. From where? And I'm asking, so where is Washington Post getting the information from?
And I'm trying to tell you that the information on the public spending, it's literally that public. Anybody can access it. This is, I'm not talking about Kenya, I'm talking about the US. So if you're talking about, let's say you say there are 7 million people who've been employed. There will be indication as to where they've been employed, which sectors and where they've come from. Now, if somebody comes and says, okay, from that same information, I'm telling you the numbers are not 7 million. It's actually 4.2 million.
Same thing happens even in this country, all right?
Yes.
When you talk about the jobs created,
yes,
you will hear the government saying we've created 800,000 jobs. We had that report. Just at the beginning of this year, 800,000 jobs created in 2018.
And we asked, where are they?
Yes, and then you hear people saying, no, where are those jobs? But if the government is actually saying 800,000 jobs, then it's using its statistics. If somebody is going to counter those statistics, come and tell us, no, from my count, it's less than 800,000. But if you're going to tell me it's from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, where the government has gotten the information from, then you'll question that. That's why I'm saying, when somebody is going against and saying, no, this is not true, what is this contrary source of information that we are getting?
How many
from?
times do you want me to actually state
Because
it
you're not
for you to
because you're not
understand?
you are not saying it directly. You're saying information available in the public. Even what Trump is saying is speaking information that is official information.
If I quote a newspaper source, it's a source, Eric. All right. So what you are questioning is the source the newspaper got the information from.
I'm not questioning you, CT. You see, that's why maybe the issue is.
No.
I'm not questioning
not
you. I'm questioning the Washington Post. I'm
not
saying when the Washington Post says 4 point whatever, this is 4.2. What is the source of this information for 4.2?
And I'm trying to tell you that if you read the article, what they're saying is that the source, the 7 million figure that is being talked about are government figures. And they're saying the same government figures, if you add them, are not 7. They are 4.2. That's what they're saying. They're not saying that they have a different source. Same figure said, if you add them, what we're being told is not what those figures add up to. They add up to 4.2.
So it's possible that those two people are saying their own truths.
It is very possible, because you're talking about a political situation, you're talking about reporting. But if it is a newspaper report and they are giving their account of it, I am more likely to believe the newspaper report.
And I'm telling you, my inclination is, unless there's actual, statistic for it that shows this is what it is, I'm also not inclined to take a newspaper that has a clear opposing side.
One of the statements
it's clearly campaigning against Donald Trump and his presidency.
Well, the other argument could be given.
Why don't you ask me for an example? I'll give another. One of the things that the president said, President Obama, Trump mentioned, was that there has been, in my own words, increased cohesiveness among the communities in America, that his government has encouraged inclusivity. We've never seen the sort of racist uprising in America as we've seen during the Trump administration. You'd need to go back to the days of slavery to be able to see this sort of thing.
No. We'd actually need to go back into the Obama years, and we'll remember the number of times that we saw demonstrations on the streets by black people complaining about Black Lives Matter, complaining about being shot by police officers, even Latinos complaining.
I think we're speaking about two different things.
We're talking about racial inclusivity and racial understanding and upheavals by racial groups.
Yes.
What upheavals have we seen by racial groups?
The examples you're giving me explain exactly what I'm saying, that it existed then, but I'm saying in this era, we have not seen anything like this.
We have not seen any kind of demonstrations like we saw.
Yes, all we've done is seen people being shot.
Have you seen those demonstrations?
No. All I'm saying is...
17 minutes past 9 o'clock. Take a break. We come back with the conversation. Let's take a look at what's happening on the weather. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, 19 degrees in Nairobi. We're looking at mostly sunny conditions through the city for the day, with a high of 26 and a low of 14. In Nakuru at 18 degrees, we're looking at rain later on with a high of 27 and a low of 14. 16 degrees currently in Eldoret, and are looking at mostly sunny conditions through the day. Mombasa with a high of 31 will be partly cloudy through the day today. Kisumu at 24 degrees. Expect showers later on with a high of 27. Expect showers in Malindi at 31 degrees, the high holding strong currently at 28 degrees. It's 19 degrees in Nyeri. Mostly sunny conditions. Expect rain later on with a high of 25 and a low of 13.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The conversation, it's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's continuing on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube and on Twitter, as well as at www.spicefm.co.ke. We're talking about what's happening in America. We had the President of the United States, Donald Trump, delivering his State of the Union address just a day before the Senate makes a vote on his impeachment. And of course, we know we have an election this year. That State of the Union address was glowing with self-praise by the president, saying that they have done things that have never been done before in the history of the United States. Of course, these are the kind of words that Trump uses, likes to use. Media and very many analysts have gone into looking at each of those items and each of those elements that the president said. And there are, of course, those that have glaring questions that have been raised. And that's what Citi Muge is, for example, talking about this morning. Publications like the Washington Post, they went ahead and said, this is what the president says, but counter, this is what is on the ground. In some cases, this is what has been said, but in other cases, in reality, this is not what's happening. Is it just too much politics, too much self-praise, out of touch with reality completely? Or is it just, yes, in touch with reality, but adding a bit of salt here and there?
Well, definitely. I think clear that it's something that cannot be ignored or cannot be glossed over, in that somebody's going to take one or two achievements that they have been able to, reach and then go overboard with that. Again, especially not ignoring the fact that it's an election year, and secondly, the man is facing conviction at the impeachment table. So here we are saying that he's going to take a last stab at being able to convince people really of the fantastic accolades that he's been able to achieve. And we can't ignore that. Of course, he's given it a healthy dose of sensationalism in terms of, what could be the case. And it's interesting that at the end of the day, he rounds this out with saying, we have begun building the wall. Republicans want strong borders and no crime. Democrats want open borders which equals massive crime. So, of course, then you see a division there directly when he talks about we're building the walls to keep the Mexicans out, essentially, or to keep immigrants out of the country, right? And at the end of the day, what was that to do? To be able to create more jobs for the American people. This is what he was saying. But you can't ignore the divisive nature of all of this and to say, really, what does it do? Because America itself, the ideals upon which it was built was massive inclusivity. And here you are basically removing that element completely. So I can't.
That's what they tell us. In reality, when a country has population that is of a different gender cannot vote for so many years, that is not inclusivity.
I'm at pains to divorce myself from looking at what could be the reality on the ground and saying that there's an element of sensationalism that has been injected into all of this.
When you say that, you ask a question, is he out of touch with reality? No, he's not. He's very much in touch with reality. And that is why he's actually making the speech he's making. If someone is facing an election, there's an impeachment process that is going to sort of like vindicate him, and he will not end up without a job. But he has an election not very far off, and he's a politician. He cannot possibly not spice up everything he's going to say and give the administration that he runs the rosiest picture that one possibly can master. But this is against a backdrop of other things that the president has been known to utter, the things he's been known to say, and which couldn't stand very close scrutiny in the obvious and straight glare of light or truth or reality for that matter. So against this backdrop of somebody who says things that don't really add up as being true, when somebody then comes up and makes the State of Union address, there's no question, for instance, that his rating in the polls has increased. That there's no question about it. There's no question about it that jobs have been found. But the numbers that are being presented are what are being stated as not representing the truth. Not that there have been no job increases. And also, it is also being said that in the entire history of the U.S., literally everything that he says his government has done has never been done before. Again, this one has to be questioned as to whether it is absolutely true or not. Now, these are the things I am saying. You see, at the end of the day, it is the Americans who decide who they are going to elect. And if he is referring, the reference point to his speech are to blue-collared employees. And that is, it has been argued, are the card of individuals who voted him in, then he's addressing the right people. And these are people who are likely to believe what they are told and how they're told. I mean, in this country of ours, Kenya, how often do we hear of people we refer to as tribal leaders making statements? It is believed. The gentleman who was with us here not very long ago, Mr. Nyeri Kioro, told us that he was a one-term MP, but People were told that the problems that ailed the coffee sector in the places that he came from were caused by him. Did they sit to pause and ask if that was actually true? They didn't pause. They figured, no, he must be the one. It means whatever machinery was being used to communicate this was very effective. So, if the president of a country understands the mechanism by which people will believe that he is the best president for the country, and the State of the Union address provides him that opportunity, he is doing the political thing that any good politician would do. Spruce it up, paint it, let people go and talk about what they want to talk, analyze it, but the people you're addressing have heard of the benefits. So now when you come up with your analysis, you will simply be countering what they have considered to be the truth. They've
already lapped it up.
Yes, they will not sit and consider that perhaps this or not. That's an academic debate as far as they're concerned. As far as they're concerned, this man has improved America, and this man has given us the great American comeback.
This is where we were, this is where we are.
Yes.
But also looking back over the 4 years, people living in that country are living with the reality of their lives in that country, right?
Yes.
So people know that at the at the end of the Bush administration, there was that entire economic collapse, the financial collapse. We saw the 8 years of Obama, then we have seen the 4 years of Trump. People in that country, especially Trump's supporters, for instance, would look at it and see, is he living up to what he came and told us he's going to do? And if they think that he's not, then he'd be losing his popularity. We see his popularity remaining strong or even increasing. That means that the reality of things that he says is resonating with the people that he wants to talk to. His audience is listening to him and they're feeling, yes, it's true.
It does resonate.
We believed you, we believe you now.
It does resonate because the one mantra that he has is that his focus is on Americans. Now, how can it not be popular? And when you paint a picture of a foreign policy that considers other countries as being anti-American, and the message that he keeps sending, this one he repeats often, the previous government essentially summarized said did nothing. If there are any problems that we face, it's Obama who brought it on. Now, this is actually not true because developments, long-term developments, capital projects within any government, they will often outlast the tendency of one particular president. And if there's a problem, usually, it may bloom and mushroom during the time of one president when it has started in an earlier president. The same with the benefits. Something may come out, like in an example, the Clinton era. Clinton was praised for many fiscal policies that worked well. But if you look at the history of America, you'll find many of those things had begun with his predecessor. But when he came into power is when now it was coming into fruition, and he will take credit for it.
Of course, you can't plant a seed and expect it to sprout tomorrow. Surely a lot of these seeds were planted, during the administration of one president. Then you begin to see the bloom later on. And that, of course, the likelihood of somebody to take credit for seed that somebody else has planted, of course, is very high. And it's unlikely that...
In the case of Trump, he's actually gone and, even unplugged some of those seeds that have been planted. Look at the Iran deal, remove it. Look at the North American deal, remove it. Look at the Obamacare, remove it. He's basically gone and said, look, no, I do not want this. I don't believe in it. Scrap it. And he says, this is the great American comeback. We have come from a period of carnage to comeback. And this is where we are. The great American journey has begun with us. People believe him.
They do.
They can see what he's saying. He's resonating. Of course, just like we were saying with the other presidents, in equal measure, there are those who will be opposed to it, and they'll be like, no, we don't believe what you're saying. But then his constituency is buying what he is telling them.
They actually are.
And not just, blindly. There must be something that they feel.
Oh, no, it is blind. That one, it is definitely blind.
There must be something that they feel.
Why it is blind?
I started by telling you that they are the ones who are living this reality.
Yes.
And if they are living the reality, then they can see, you told us this, you have delivered it. We believe you.
If you sell hope and people pursue it, hope is a promise of the future. Everything that was promised may not have occurred, but why I use the word blind is because there is faith. There is a belief that what we have been told will actually come to pass. Now, they will not question. That's why it is blind. They will not question. If you don't question anything, then you believe in it blindly. Now, questioning doesn't mean that whatever you're being told is wrong. It's just that you want to determine whether it's as true as actually being advertised. It is a normal thing that one, I think, would do. Think of political followings in this country and the tribal lines they follow. How much logic do you think they apply to that following? Tell me. How much, apart from our leader has said, let's follow. Tell me. Logic beyond that. Does it really exist?
When it's not in touch with reality, there will be a lot of questions.
Give me an example of where that...
Central Kenya and the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. And now, the reason why he's actually taking a lot of effort going back into Central Kenya, saying, I'm going to come and inspect the projects myself. I'm going to come and do this to Mwea tea. I'm going to Mwea rice. I'm going to come and do this about milk. Is because people are saying, we don't have money in our pockets. They are feeling that kind of feeling. And this is the rock of his support.
And
reality.
And they needed 7 years to figure this out.
Reality versus, hey, look, this is what you told us, man. We're not feeling it.
So you're saying they gave him time, and the time was 7 years, and 7 years down the line, they're not seeing it.
The first 5 years, they were like, all right, so come and tell us, and this is what you've started doing. We can see what you've started doing. And then he came and said, yes, we've done this and the other. And now they're like, wait, where is it?
Okay.
The belief comes from reality. That's the point I'm making. At 9:30, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Looking at Trump's State of the Union address and, of course, what we're expecting. He's going to be acquitted by the Senate in the impeachment hearings. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right,
Traffic.
So some traffic on Mombasa Road that we've been able to see in the last half hour, definitely between Cabanas and General Motors, still bumper to bumper situation. Looking better off Ngong Road now and being able to access at least roads that lead to the CBD easier than it was before. Coming off Thika Road, of course, getting onto the Globe Cinema roundabout and then into the CBD, much better now. So it's moving wherever we're trying to get to, as opposed to what we saw about half hour ago. So it's looking a lot better wherever you might lead to, unless you see something that we should know about. Do let us know. Give us a shout, Spice FM KE, or give us a call, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Do you think that speech will also help to galvanize the opposition support? Like now looking at it and them looking at and saying, look, this is what Trump is telling us. It's completely hogwash. It's balderdash. We don't buy it. We need to get this man out.
Well, I don't think it's going to take too long to do that. I mean, I think right after he read his speech, we had... the same speech was ripped up yesterday as he was walking out. So, I mean...
That's his beef with Pelosi, right?
So, Nancy Pelosi was not mincing her words without saying anything at this point and basically said, this thing that you're telling us, my friend, number one, it makes no sense whatsoever. Number two, it's absolute garbage. And we're not listening it, and we're not going to listening to it, and we're not going to allow you to continue to perpetuate this lie to the people of America. You know? And so that action alone said
for Pelosi
all of
and
those
Trump,
things.
it's a no love lost situation. When he walked in, he refused to shake her hand.
But that isn't the first time.
It's not the first time that's happened, yeah. It's not the first time it's happened.
She extended her hand, and this time he just completely ignored it, went and read a
Trump
speech.
does that all the time.
And then she wanted to show the people, like, you know what, I've got my own comeback. I'm not going to be treated like this in my own house. Drama. It's
of course still lends to the disbelief in the words that he spoke in that speech.
Trying to show her, so you impeached me. You impeached me. Ha! Tomorrow I'll still be here.
Yeah, we're still saying that what they believe that he has said, and of course trying to send that message to the people, because she wasn't doing it to get back at him directly.
She was.
I think she was.
Eric,
also
she
doing
is
it,
the first person who actually declined to push that agenda when her party wanted to push the agenda. Mm-hmm. She declined and said no. I don't think this is the way to go about it.
Which one? The impeachment?
Yes. She's the one who opposed it. She actually opposed it. And it's only later when there was pressure and they said they had more evidence when she relented. So to say that she's been pushing the agenda from day one is not true.
Who said day one?
You.
No. I said that she has been. She is the one who oversaw the impeachment.
That's what you call a revision of the statement. I like the revision.
John, do you have the recording of this thing? We can play it right now.
No, you gave the
Is that what you heard?
No.
I didn't say it, CT.
No.
That wasn't me, okay? Let's just be clear.
No.
Day one.
Eric, you gave the day one is me.
I gave the impression.
You gave the impression that Pelosi has been chasing Trump and wanting to impeach him.
Pelosi and Trump have been having a serious fallout in the last couple of months, of course, because of how this impeachment as well has gone.
I don't think
That
they have
is
been
one.
having a fallout. There are two things. Remember, the representation that Pelosi has is not Pelosi. She represents a certain party and the interests of that party. Is she not the leader of the...
She's the leader of the Dems and
Yes,
she's the speaker.
Exactly. So being the speaker, there are things that her office will require her to do. So it isn't her.
There are statements that she has also made. Of course, also Trump, then we can also say Trump is not him, it's a Republican Party, it's the office of the presidency. No.
We can distinguish those
No,
things.
in this
we
case, I
can
think we can distinguish
but
between
we cannot
Trump and then the Republicans.
We cannot distinguish between Pelosi. No.
In this
There
case,
are
I think
things,
it's
there
very
are
clear.
statements that
But
Pelosi has made that have
obviously
been
because
very
of-
personal on Trump.
Well, obviously because of the character that he has and how he has often always lent himself. It's not Pelosi's first ride in the rodeo, definitely. And I think she's also made her position clear on many times. But the character of Trump in all of this cannot be ignored. And I think you would admit to that also, that in terms of his character, Republican or Democrat, whichever one that he was, his character has shown brightly in how he represents the people of America, as it were. And whichever house it was that he was supporting or not supporting in this case, his character is something in the manner in which he speaks. And a lot of times we even had Republicans say that it's not representative of how they feel either.
But this vote that we had even in the Senate, there were 2 Republicans who voted with the...
for impeachment, absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So it's not as though there are people who don't agree with him. So are we saying that even if they disagree with him, all these things he was doing was in his capacity as the president and representing the American people? If he were, if you remember, the impeachment is about precisely that. He is not, what he is doing is not what he's supposed to do. So he cannot be representing the American people. If they felt that was the case, there would have been no impeachment.
Of course, there are those that felt that, and there are those that voted against it. So there are those that felt what you're talking about here does not hold water. When the Senate is going to vote later tonight and the guy gets his acquittal, what are we going to be saying? That he was representing the American people because there are some
I will be
senators
saying
who
tyranny
vote.
of numbers.
There you go. So
It's
when it goes the other way, it's tyranny of numbers. But it's the opposite vote. He's not representing the American people. Take it the same way.
No. I am saying
if the lower house, if you're saying that the lower house voted and said what Trump has done is not representative of the American people, then also let's take it that if the Senate votes the other way around, the Senate says what the American president has done was representing the American people. Same sword, 2 sides of the same sword.
There was an accusation. And the reason why this thing went to the Senate was for the Senate to decide whether it merited removing him from office. It's not that he didn't do it. No. It's whether it merited him being removed from office.
Yes.
Now, that is the discussion. We had a situation in this country where it was first proposed that a committee ought to be set up to look into the issue of Ferdinand Waititu, the immediate former governor of Kiambu. The Senate in Kenya decided, no, let the full Senate be that committee. And lo and behold, that is what happened. Now, if you look at processes that are followed, you must also understand what it is that is at stake and what it is that the individual who has been impeached is being accused of. Yes. If the Senate votes and they say that whatever you may have brought here does not warrant the president being removed from his position as president, so be it. That is what will happen. But it doesn't mean that they're saying that these things he's being accused of did not happen. No. It's just that the threshold that is required to ensure that this sort of thing removes him has not been met.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
It has not been met.
And by saying that, you're basically saying that your argument that what he was doing was unrepresentative of the American people does not...
Actually,
it has not met that threshold. We are not convinced.
If you have a situation where more than 45% of representatives, assuming they represent more than 45% of the American people, think you should be impeached, it tells you clearly not all Americans agree with you.
Agree with what you're saying.
That's all it says.
Or agree with the manner in which you're handling things. At the end of the day, when we look at impeachment, we're not talking about each and everything that you have done or ever said or any kind of sentiment that you have uttered. There are certain things that are brought to the floor, right? And they say, on this count, then we then present, justifiable cause for impeachment. And upon that, then we make the decision on these two, not the host of other things that he may have said or ways in which he represents the American people, on these two matters. So then I don't think we can then now lump it all and say it doesn't represent or it does represent the American. I don't think we can do that. Just the same way then that it is the numbers that they're going to use to either get their way in or out. It is the numbers then that will be applicable in this sense. And that's what they're looking at. When they take that to it, because if it was, people would come forth and give their testimony, right? But in this case, it's not that. It is count. Agree? Or not.
The issue of testimony, remember, was kicked out.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So the moment it was kicked out,
it's just the numbers game that
it was
plays
now
out
just
here.
the numbers.
It's the numbers game.
The
so
reason
it's either
why,
yes or no.
The reason why the issue of witnesses was brought in was to beef up the case
from the lower, from the Democrats.
Yes,
exactly.
Because also the Democrats in the lower house had voted to have all these things, and they also voted for impeachment.
Yes.
They're the ones who vote. Tyranny of numbers in the lower house, tyranny of numbers in the upper house. That's what I'm saying. Same sword, different sides. It's sharp on this side. When it cuts on the other side, it's also just as sharp. This is the nature of what they have. Let's open the phone lines as well so we can have contributions to this. 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. We are looking at the presidency of Donald Trump. Of course, yesterday he had delivered the State of the Union address. And then today we're expecting that the Senate is going to vote to acquit him of the impeachment case against him. And this will be because the Republicans are a majority in the upper house. So what does this directly mean for the president? What does it mean for the American people? What does it mean for the American voter? What does it mean for the campaign that's about to kick up in earnest for the Democrats, whoever they choose as the person to go against Donald Trump? Is Donald Trump likely to come in the second term? Is he not? Let's hear what you have to say. 0719-012-600 on that. All right. So Nancy Pelosi tore up the papers.
Tore up the speech, essentially.
The speech. And, basically just showing this is what I think about you. Can we just go to the phone lines quickly? This is Karaoke from Wakulima Market in Nakuru. Good morning, Karaoke.
How are you guys?
Hey, good morning.
Fine, thanks.
Long to see you. Anyway, I've been hearing what you've been saying. All I'm saying is that whether they are going to impeach him or not, I think they are not going to follow the due process of the law, because whether he has done it in terms of economy, that's what I'm saying. Well, he has done tremendously right in terms of economy. But on the other hand, when we go back to the rule of law, I think he's wrong somewhere. And whether the Senate is going to impeach him or not, they are not going to follow the law, but they are just going to vote as Kenyan MP or senators, in this case, where they don't follow the law.
It's numbers.
Let's argue the case like that, my dear. Because as per the way things are, already the House of Representatives has voted him out, right?
Yep.
Because they have seen something. Despite the fact that the economy has improved. One, that's right. That's good. But you ought to stop that to avoid a scenario like that happening tomorrow, because as he gets used to that, then he's going to breach the law. That's the case. So for me, I think that guy should be voted out despite what he has done.
Despite everything else that he has done. Thank you very much, Karaoke. Thank you, Karaoke. Daniel in Kisumu, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is my take on President Trump regime. Since he started, it was not American dream to have President Trump being voted as President of America.
Yep.
But what I can realize is that he has tried to use the iron fist to rule, and at the same time, with the impunity that Americans didn't like at first. But I agree with one of the panelists that in Trump's regime, there have been uprising on racial intonations in the country, and even him supporting. So, okay, with the Senate, we know his presidency will be upheld, and being impeached will be something out of Democrats' control. So what is happening is that Americans will show the world that they are not following the democratic processes, and they are not even adhering to the fact that they are the role model when it comes to democratic processes. Because you see, they've been aligned in one part. Okay, they are not checking the fact on the Trump impeachment. They are not checking the fact, but they are aligning themselves to the party. So that's also a lesson to Africa. They've been insisting that we be democratic, and whereas with them, they know that with them they know that they have just to follow their party.
Right. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you for your contribution. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You can also post your comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, where we are live streaming. You can also post the same comments on Twitter at Spice FM KE, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif, at CT Muga. Do you think President Donald Trump has done tremendously well, as he claims to have done in his State of the Union address to the American people? Has he done tremendously well? Has he moved America back to its greatness? Should he get re-elected this year? Or, in fact, should he get impeached and get kicked out of office by the Senate? Or is this thing of playing the tyranny of numbers in the Senate just going against all the democratic ideals that America claims to uphold? Good morning. It's a quarter to 10.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
And the phone lines are open. Let's go to the phone lines. All the way from Ngong, this is Oscar. Good morning, Oscar.
I'm well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good morning, Oscar.
Salimia Odijo hapa.
Fiti, hali. Asante.
Okay. Now, I only have one reminder from my good friend Eric. Odijo had mentioned that we hadn't seen as many protests as have been, even with the past presidents during this presidency of Trump.
Yep.
But I don't think it's about the numbers. Look back at what happened in Kentucky. You know the emergence of KK. Can you imagine that in this present world at a time?
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the sentiments that come out of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
That aside, I think even with people who are not in tune with American politics and the happenings in America every day,
yep,
you can just see an outright liar. It can be you're good when you're serving him.
Mm-hmm.
Count how many staffers have moved out of the White House. And immediately they come out, they say this thing, and he says, no, it was a failure, he could not match his task. You know, he always finds something to say about someone who he's fallen out with.
Yep.
It cannot be against one person. At least there must be somebody who says, no, he was a good person.
Mm.
Be his personal lawyer, be his the chief of staff.
Those who still work for him say he's a good person, Oscar.
And that tells you that he's a strong-fisted person. But when you are displaced, then you speak the truth. And once you speak the truth, then he brands you to be a failure.
Mm.
But what I'm saying is, it's like the previous callers have said, the Senate in America will just vote. Sorry to say, like Kenyans would vote. They have taken party lines, and you can see it. Remember when Mitt Romney had threatened that he was going to take him on, he bashed him.
Yep.
But I think the retreat, when they were doing the presentation, the managers and the lawyers for Trump, when they took the retreat, I think it was spelled out. You're either out with us or you're with the other guys. And when Mitt Romney came, he voted against the witnesses. How best would it be for a process to present witnesses to say what they have to say? But anyway, this is none of our business. We're just reading. This is stories we are reading. We have our own business to tackle back at home.
We have our own monkey and forests. Thank you very much, Oscar. Have a good day. 0719-012-600. That's the number to call in. Of course, you can also post your comments on Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
You know, CNN have said that if you listen to the speech that President Trump made, they argue that indeed, as State of the Union addresses tend to go this way, but that they say he has added a reality show flourish to it. And they go back to the days of Ronald Reagan, and they said the last time we saw such a thing was when Ronald Reagan was actually the president. Where you're wondering, is this guy telling me something which is true, or am I imagining what I'm hearing, or where is he getting this information from?
It can't be ignored that there are quite a number of head turners in this, and of course, I mean, just from
in the speech.
Well, yeah, sure. A lot of the analyses that we see after this speech, a lot of questions were coming through, and people were wondering, okay, in this same America where we actually are living, all these things we've seen come to be, we can't ignore that fact that has come out again. We're not. Whether he has achieved or not achieved is not in question. It is very clear that he's using these achievements or these accolades to propel a particular agenda, and that clearly that he is still the man. At the end of the day, the man for president, vote him in the next election, keep him around, and don't let this impeachment process come to a head. That's the thing. Whether he's achieved these things or not really actually is not the thing. But he is using this again to try, and it's clear, he's using this to influence the people to think in a certain manner. Because, of course, the public euphoria or the sentiment around a particular individual is very important then when it comes during an election period. That's very important in terms of how they're going to vote and whom they're going to vote. Vote in. So it's clear that he's used, this is a tool that is clearly being used.
Yes.
And the point is that influence here is definitely one way in which he's trying to still get ahead.
All-time politicians know one way of doing things, right? So they know this is how we shall come, this is how we shall present our lies, because all of them are presenting basically some things that are half-truths, right?
Some beefed up
truths. So this is how we shall present these are truths, and this is how the people shall lap it up. And now this is one politician who has not played this political game for long, so he hasn't been indoctrinated into their way of doing things. Of course, you're going to look at them like, so the way he's behaving is just like, a talk show person or a TV personality would do.
Well, you can't ignore the fact that he was a TV personality.
Reagan,
obviously, that's what they're bringing that in.
Ronald Reagan, he was an actor, a Hollywood person, a Hollywood star, and then look at Donald Trump. Just trying to dismiss, these are outsiders.
Donald Trump himself as the apprentice.
Yes, outliers. These are just people who are, they've come from showbiz, and they're bringing their showbiz into politics. Politics is done in a certain way. Well, tough. This is how politics is being done this time by this particular president. It has been done, yes, before by another president. This is how we shall package our truths, and this is how the people shall take it. Now, them sitting back there and acting like they're shocked, well, too bad. But this is it. This is how, of course, the way you're saying it's true that he's looking at it from, I've got to bring out the points that I think are the best, the points that I think the people are going to appreciate and acknowledge and resonate with, so that when we go into the political campaigns, I keep repeating these same messages. In fact, I bet you he will use these same words that he used in yesterday's speech. He'll use those same words through the campaign trail across the country.
Well, of course, it's conditioning to a certain extent.
And this is it. This is going to be his key message.
Of course, it's conditioning to a certain extent, because they say if you say things a certain an adequate number of times, people start to believe it. Whether it is the case or not, even if they can see around them that the atmosphere tells us something totally different. But somebody has said it. They said it yesterday. They continue to say it equal measure. Time and time again. Of course, the thing is that they tend to believe.
It's not just
what
is said.
Would be.
No. It's when you have a clever politician who aligns it with your expectations. Then it becomes very, very easy to believe. Americans want to believe that they're the greatest nation on earth. They don't want to hear anything else. Number 2, 3, they don't want to hear. They want to hear that they're most tolerant country in the world. They want to hear positive things about their country, and they want to hear it continuously. Now, it's an addiction, and it is an addiction. And Donald Trump is providing a fix. He is reminding them that you're great. If you listen to the cheering with every statement, you'd know he hit the
and he knew how to do it. In fact, well, that coverage of how he was bringing in the showman into the reality show flourish into it. The Trump returned to his roots as a reality television star, peppering in flourishes and surprises meant to delight the viewing audience. Some of the moves seemed cribbed straight from daytime television, bringing home a soldier from Afghanistan, reuniting him with his family. Right there during the speech, right? Awarding a 9-year-old girl with a scholarship. Awarding the conservative radio icon Rush Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Complete with the ceremony in the First Lady's box. You know, he was basically doing that. Peppering the speech. Razzmatazz. Bringing so and so. In fact, I'm going to talk about Rush Limbaugh. Come, Rush. Give him the Presidential Medal of Honor. We've got this soldier who's coming back home, reuniting them with the family. Right there, understanding this, I have a platform
resonates
that is going across the country.
Of course.
At this point, everybody in America is watching this show, primetime show,
and it making them feel good.
And
about
you need
themselves.
to do something. Yes, you need to do something. Show that I recognize this guy. He's very controversial across the country. He's a radio icon. Come.
This particular guy is actually conservative.
Award him.
He's conservative, meaning he's the sort of guy who will resonate with the audience that Trump was actually addressing. But remember, when someone is already primed to expect something, meaning as being American, this is what you expect. And if you're blue collar, this is what you expect. And somebody is preaching your message. They feed into an expectation. You will believe everything they tell you. Each and everything that you're told.
Word for word.
Well, it finds a ready, flourishing, well-set structure. It just fits in.
And don't we can't, fool ourselves that we can't fool ourselves that Trump that Trump doesn't know this either.
But he does.
This is the thing. He knows very well the position at which the American people are. He understands it from end to end, and he understands his
better
audience.
Than these politicians.
He knows
do.
what they want to hear. He knows the position at which they are at, and he knows what is going to tip them over the edge in terms of now backing him for, with any kind of support. He is very well aware. And at this point, he's very cleverly positioned his words, his actions. We talked about this award ceremony that happened right off the cuff in the middle of a speech when the entire 300 million Americans are watching, kind of thing. He knows very well what they expect, what they're lacking, what they need to hear. And he plays right there. So he understands it. Trying to take your attention of all these other things you people are talking about, charge about conspiracy. It doesn't play here
he
at
didn't
all.
Even mention this.
Doesn't mention it in any way whatsoever.
That we've had in this country for the longest time. When something happens to a politician, it suddenly becomes a plurality. We are being finished. All right?
Yes.
And you think it is something of a time gone by. It isn't. Look at this purge on corruption in this country as it's presented. The we are being finished narrative has come back.
Yeah.
And you're asking, pause for a second, that may very well be the case. But might this person be guilty of the things that they're being charged?
Actually.
But are they the only guilty party?
Precisely.
Why isn't the other tribe also being targeted?
And then you will ask, when you look at, again, a valid question, but let's look at, say, this ministry like Pipeline.
Yes.
And let's look at the number of people who are charged. Are we saying that they're only in one community? Someone says mostly, then say, okay, then let's ask how many people from that community are employed in that particular. Yeah. So again, the numbers will work against you here.
It's the numbers. It's the numbers. And we can't deny it will play a major role in the decisions that are going to be made later today in the US. It will play a major role. In fact, it could be the one thing that people are dependent upon to have this decision made. Look, we already know and we can see, the winds and in which way they are blowing, right? But those winds are going to be blown and pushed further along by the numbers. Yeah.
Coming to the end of the show, remember you can get your copy of the souvenir edition of The Standard today. It's 80 pages full. Very many pictorials and stories on the former President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, who we know will be buried next week on Wednesday in Kabarak. It's going to be a state funeral. And then, of course, we know that the body is going to be lying in state in Parliament at some point. We'll expect to hear this from the committee that's organizing the state funeral, of course. And so remember, this is it. The souvenir edition. If you don't get yourself a copy, my friend, go on with the era. Say goodbye, guys.
Let the conversation continue, Eric.
We'll talk tomorrow.
So tomorrow we'll, of course, be talking about what happens in the Senate of the United States of America tonight. maybe we may just get surprised that those guys vote to remove the president from office.
And then the sun will stand still.
Can you imagine?
That will truly be interesting.
Now,
because
that will be the dramatic.
Given this is politics, we cannot discount that possibility.
Oh, yes. See you again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. My name is Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko and C.T. Muga. This is the Situation Room crew, Kenya's biggest conversation. Join